Hello, everybody. Broadcasting to you live from the Orion spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, somewhere in between two formerly tariffed nations. My name is Brian Engelman. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. And this is the Agree to Disagree show here on the New American Media, because the old American media has failed you. Today, we're going to be bringing on Mr. John B. Wells from Caravan to Midnight, the John B. Wells program. John has been covering the news and making sense of the strange for many years now. Covering, the standard fare. Current events, paranormal, world news, health and nutrition, technology, futurism, science, politics. That word was politics, religion, entertainment, music, and pop culture. You may have first found John, years ago on Coast to Coast AM, more recently on Caravan to Midnight. But John has been a regular guest on the Agree to Disagree show here on the New American Media. And we are thrilled to bring him back today. So without further ado, let's jump into the program.
Your guide to the truth, thenewamericanmedia.com.
All right. John B. Wells, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me on. Good to see you, Ryan.
Good to see you. I think most of the shows we did before, we were talking. I don't know that we had video the last time we were talking.
Probably not. Well, the tech is ever evolving, right? So now we have video to go along with the audio. It's beautiful.
We do. The green screens are pretty fantastic. It's a good time to be alive. John, when you grew up, did you think you'd have access to communicate with the entire planet and any extraterrestrial civilizations, if they be out there outside of this experience we call Earth? Do you think we would have the ability to run our own radio station, television station, right from our own our own home office?
I didn't really know it, but I sensed it because, I was kind of what some might say, I'm not going to say a weird little kid, but I was into things that the other kids weren't into at all. And I always read far above my reading level. My father made sure of that. And anytime I asked him a question about anything, he'd point to the library and say, look it up. Because he knew that if I looked it up, I would remember it. But if he just told me, it'd be in one ear and out the other. So, yeah, I thought it was going to be possible. I knew that there were great things ahead. And I thought that most of these things were being suggested, if not predicted, through the writings of Bradbury. A lot of the things that Ray Bradbury wrote about have actually come to pass. Starting with Fahrenheit 451. I think we're on the very lead, the entry phase of Fahrenheit 451 with all the, burning the books and so forth. What people don't know about Fahrenheit 451 even more closely parallels what we could have been. I don't think we are now. It could rear its ugly head again, but not only it's like, the firemen show up to burn the books. That's true. But they also burned up the person inside the house where the books were. And by the time it's all over with, all of these things have to be memorized as the warplanes go across the sky. Another war is coming. I mean, it's just all these guys laid this stuff out. It makes me wonder, Brian, did they predict the future or did they actually create the future? I have embraced this idea that thoughts they're not just thoughts, just random bits of information. If somebody holds on to something, it's much like prayer. You can speak the words, but when you get into that zone where you really want to connect with the creator God, that's different. And you can actually manifest these things. So if you can manifest these things, and if a brilliant author or two or many others who seem to be in agreement, which also parallels scripture, if these writers are all creating these literary works, but they're in the same vein, that would suggest to me that they're in agreement and that in some way they have, in fact, created the future that appears to be to the reader to be just a fanciful story about a what if or something. But I really think there's a strong possibility they've created it.
Yeah, the zeitgeist, the mood or feeling of the times.
Yeah.
That's are we explaining it? Are we merely identifying the world we see around us? Or like in The Departed. I don't know if you've seen The Departed with Jack Nicholson.
Oh,
If you
yes.
haven't, great flick. In the very beginning, it's a full black screen. He says, I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
I kind of like that. It was an ugly character he portrayed, but I
Yeah.
could embrace that piece of philosophical wisdom.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what we've had is something more along the lines of retired U.S. Army General Wesley Clark. Remember when he had the memo, talked about taking out 7 countries in 5 years: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Somalia, Sudan, Iran. How much of this is scripted decades in advance, maybe funded
Most of
by
it.
U.S. aid and whatnot, but there are long-term strategies at play here. I read a post earlier on the TNAM Daily Show when we covered kind of the regular stories in the news, and they were just talking about, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could get rid of the income tax now that can we finally wrap up World War I in this temporary income tax? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
We were born into a world that was really schemed out for us 100 years ago. I
Yeah.
don't know, since time immemorial. We want to go back to, shape-shifting reptilians or beings from the heavens descending from the skies in chariots of fire, however we want to define it. It's kind of weird trying to figure out exactly what we're living in. Is it a video game? Is it a matrix? Is it a simulation? Is this a training ground? Is this AI? What even is this, John?
I think it's all of it. Really, I think it's a combination of all of those things that you just named. It's funny. You mentioned motion pictures. One that I am particularly fond of is called The Usual Suspects,
Mm.
which I
Kaiser
also use.
Soze.
You know that one?
Oh yeah, I used Kaiser as a pseudonym one time when I had to be like my own assistant. I was Kaiser Soze. My name was Kaiser.
Yeah. Well, I've always employed. When I saw that picture, I thought, now this is interesting, and I don't want to give it away. So if there's a
To be
spoiler
fair, it's
coming.
a 30-year-old movie at this point. You're allowed to give it away after 3
Okay.
decades.
Well, you remember when he's in the office with the cop and he's just looking around the room, drawing all these different little bits of information and weaving them together into a story, and he walks, you know, and that's really the technique that I realized that I employed because when I was looking at this, I thought, yeah, that's exactly it. If you want the answer to your question, or if you whatever it is, if you're assembling a story, or if you're trying to deconstruct an official narrative or story, narrative is that's the common expression now. You have to pull from everywhere, and you pull these little tidbits, just something here and something there and something over there. And oh, this might be useful, and you put this all into the mix and hit the switch and spin them up. And when you pour out the batter, this is a pretty good batter. Say this is going to make a very, very interesting cake. So that is, I think that's something that people could actually apply. You hear a bit of information here. It's just information. That's all. You don't know if it's true or not. But then you hear something else. Then you see a symptom of what the first bit of information suggested was actually real, but not completely. But you take a little piece of that and you just combine it with these other things. Before long, you have a pretty reasonable picture. And if you just embellish it just a little bit, just be a little creative with it, you're liable to wind up with the answer far in advance of the so-called media, which is which is really a story for another time. I call it the alphabet media now, for more than one reason: the ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, but also the alphabet agency. So it's the alphabet media. It is an absolute. It's so easy to detect. Once you start doing the Kaiser Soze thing, you can see the end from the beginning. So I recommend it to everybody. Employ the Kaiser Soze theory in your daily analysis of your own life and the world around you, and you'll come close to an accurate picture. You really will, because it's not all of the news doesn't come from one channel. You get a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there and a little bit, and then before long you say, "Oh, I see." So this is the framework that this whole story is being built around. Okay, but then you move on, because then it becomes a question. Well, what do you do with this information? And that is probably the most important question. Most people just say, "That's interesting," and they move on. They go right back into the herd and the herd mentality that accompanies it. So I don't know if that made any sense. It did to me. But
Yeah, it does. I call them people, words have meanings. What Kenneth is saying here in the comments, what we think about will come about. Yes.
yeah,
And so I don't call it the mainstream media. I know people used to, and Rush coined the term the drive-by media. That was pretty good. But I just call them the lying legacy media. Our words are so important. Gender dysphoria. It's a DSM. It's a diagnostic statistically, in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. We can say transgender and we can use the wordology. I'm making up words now, but we could just identify things as they are accurately, or we could just repeat the things they want us to
yeah,
say.
yeah,
And it's fair to have compassion and all that stuff, but like we just need to be honest about what's going on. There's nothing mainstream about the deep state media, the divisive, demonic, Democrat deep state media, lying legacy media. It's not mainstream. I never use that word anymore. When I
yeah,
read an article, I'll cover the news and go, the far right leader of Bucharest or something. I go, no, I'm never reading the phrase far right. Far right is a slur. I'm never using it. We don't use
mm,
far left. We don't call the Democrats and the globalists out for what they are. I'm not accepting far right ever, because far right usually just means I'm going to prioritize myself and my neighborhood and my country first. Oh, that makes you far right. No, it doesn't. It makes you right. That's self-preservation. What is that? In Pulp Fiction, when the wolf comes in. If self-preservation is an instinct that you possess, well, yeah, I do have a idea for self-preservation. And I want to ask you about South Africa. That, like, this story was in the news last week. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to talk to John B about this. You and Brendy, like, you're on top of that story. There's so much going on in the world. But let me get to that in a second. First off, John, tell us about Caravan to Midnight. Tell us about kind of the journey, what got you to there. I know we've talked before. It's been quite a few years, so I'm really happy to have you on
yeah.
again. Remind the viewers that maybe aren't familiar with you, kind of how you got to the pivot point at Coast that launched Caravan, and then what you did with Caravan and how you sift through stories trying to figure out, like you said, I think in pre-production, you're going, most of the stories are BS. They're not real stories, but we have to read between the lines and make sense of it. So
Yeah.
maybe just kind of introduce yourself to the people that might not be familiar with you, and tell us about the pivot point into into Caravan to Midnight, and tell us what you've been up to over there and how you're picking the subjects you cover, how you're finding garbage stories from accurate stories, and the type of guests you're bringing in.
Well, it's really pretty complicated. I don't want this to come off as excessive chest beating, because there's no chest beating here. Just to start at the very beginning, I was very interested in the works of Patrick McGoohan from his. We didn't get Danger Man over here. We got Secret Agent, and then we got the Prisoner series that came out in '67, where Pat McGoohan, who was an Irish American, for some reason he was always presented as being British, because the whole thing with MI5 and 6, and the whole British intelligence apparatus scandal of the 60s, with a fellow named Hollis, that Peter Wright, who wrote Spycatcher, thought was actually the mole inside MI5. When Pat McGoohan, but anyway, he's actually an American. He doesn't have a British accent at all. He's the late Patrick McGoohan now. But his Prisoner series is 16 episodes, but number 16 is a two-parter. So you get 17 shows, but the number 16 is two-part. It's Fallout and Once Upon a Time are the titles. And in this series, he depicted everything that we are looking at now from a history course. There's one called The General. Uh, we're going to cover a 6-hour history course in 20 seconds flat. And everybody to lock in the computer and take over their brains. And the problem was this, and it's just so poignant. To me, it is, at least. When the villagers would be out at the cafe or something talking, they'd say, well, what about the Treaty of 18 such and such and so forth? Everyone would give the identical answer, word for word. And I thought, yes, yes, I understand that. So time goes on, and we're playing with tape recorders because tiny little tape recorders were all the rage. Now, they didn't really exist, but we thought it would be so cool to be able to do this because the Man from Uncle was current. I mean, we were just little kids, but all this spy stuff and the goofy stuff like uh, Get Smart, Barbara Feldon, and whoever the man was that played it. I can't call his name to save my life right now. But one thing led to another, and I never built a shortwave radio or anything. The older boys were getting a box of parts and a Heath kit. It's a box of parts and schematic. Figure it out, build yourself a shortwave. Well, that was above my interest level and also beyond my capabilities. I didn't know how to read a schematic, or I didn't know what any of this stuff was. But I was always interested in electronics, and then this turned into surveillance. And for example, making a tape recording of a Scoutmasters conference, um, where it was revealed that the Scoutmaster was about half lit, maybe a little bit more than half. And no, he was mad about that, when he found out because a rat inside the patrol told him. So one thing leads to another, and I make a commercial for my dear departed mom for her boutique. And I took it over to a guy who would later go on to be a producer of, shall we say, industrial narrations for Lockheed Martin. And I would go to work for him too. So I recorded this thing, gave it to a friend of mine. We were just sitting out in this old Jaguar. I've still got that thing, by the way. I think I've pushed it probably 20 miles since I've owned it. And seriously, 66 E-Type. We're sitting there listening. I said, listen to this. You're going to kick out of this. He says, let me have this thing. Okay. Why? Because I'm going to play for Mick. Well, Mick became Capitol Hill correspondent Jim Miklashevsky, but in those days, he was kind of a big radio dog in Dallas. He was James Allen Miklashevsky. So he became a Capitol Hill correspondent. He called me up a couple of days. I said, well, be sure and give me the cassette back. And he goes, yeah, I will. So as this, this is a priceless relic. And so he hired me at this little mom and pop station. I stayed there a year and 2 months, and I went to this big rock station in Dallas, which was kind of floundering. And when I left there, I had a record share. I didn't do it. The Lord did it. Okay. And I was the wildest thing they'd ever seen before or since, but it yielded some good things. But by the time I came to my time there, which was 2 years and 10 months, the producers were calling from all over town, booking me on sessions. And I have been the voice of virtually all of the top 50 radio stations in this country, but nobody knows that it's me. I mean, WNEW New York, WCBS News Radio 88, the BBM in Chicago, WWJ in Detroit. I mean, I had an AM and FM and a TV station all at the same time, being the main image voice of their stations in Dallas, Texas. And nobody said anything about it. It was fine. An AM and FM and a TV. So this turned into, this was a great career for a long time. But and I hit Dallas at exactly the right time, because all these ad agencies were coming here, all these big outfits from New York and LA and Chicago. They remained where they were, but so many others had come here, and they would, because they enjoyed it, going to New York, or going to LA, but not really LA. It was really more like really New York. LA was not known as a big advertising town. New York was. And so we took a lot of business away from them. I didn't do it. They did it. And then they got to where they liked going to New York. So they eventually began closing their offices here. You think things are going to go on forever, but they don't. But I'm telling you, they produced more fantastic commercials than any other city. And the people in New York, Chicago, and even LA, they just hated it because we were a non-union town. So you could pretty much do what you wanted to. You didn't have all those restrictions. We would join after SAG just because you kind of had to fit into the club, but they really did nothing for you. So to cut a long story short, that had about a 25-year run. You could make You know, if you were good at it, and I trained for it. I did all the voice and diction stuff. I did the theater stuff. Not that I wanted to, go prancing around the stage, especially, but I wanted all of the voiceover guys, all of the actors who were doing voiceovers then. They spoke in these dignified styles, and of course they could be as raucous and crazy off camera and off mic as they wanted to be because they were people. But as far as making a respectable presentation of a product, these guys were it. I wanted to be like them. I didn't want to be the contemporary kind of smart aleck what we hear now. It's got chicken, it's got lots of chicken. Go to get your burrito with lots of chicken. It's just stupid. I didn't want any part of that. So after 25 years, it began to taper off. But that's okay because I was doing all these stations all over the place. I mean, pick one. I mean, two stations in LA, KLOS, and then later KROQ, and I mean, Vegas, Detroit, St. Louis, Kansas City, Houston, Miami, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. It was really quite something. And then those started with the advent of streaming services like iHeartMedia. Well, that became less important also because as it stands now, very few people comparatively are listening to radio. They get all of their news and their music and everything else from one of these.
Yep.
This was predicted also in many of those science fiction stories. You can just carry around the world in your pocket. So I thought, I got to do something. So I called up. By the way, I'm on the verge of finishing this book, which is an expose of what it was really like back in those days, leading all the way up to the present. But I'll let you know when that comes out, and maybe we'll bust it out on your show if you want to.
Please do. Yes.
But it's going to be it'll be pretty fun, I think. And sometimes I read things in it, and I wonder, do I really want to publish this? Oh well, I'll challenge it, that thing. So my program director, a fellow named Tom Owens, went on to be quite successful. He became a senior vice president of new content for Premiere, which is the syndication arm of what is now known as iHeartMedia. And I called a buddy of mine, and I said, "Where's Tom?" He goes, "Oh, he's in Dallas." I went, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, he's right over there at the Clear Channel building." It was Clear Channel, then it changed to iHeart. I said, "Can you get me up there to see him?" He goes, "Oh yeah, well this guy, he knows all the ins and outs, all the secret passageways, everything." So we just went by all the security, went up to the third floor, I knocked on the door, saw Tom. But this was a slow grind. I did one show in 2005 on Coast to Coast. They just told Coast to Coast, put him on. Lisa Lyon herself, who's retired now, said, "We didn't know what we were getting. They just told us to put you on."
Yeah,
Well,
Lisa Lyon, that's a name. Yeah.
yeah, it was really quite something. But as with most things, there was controversy here. So I did one show in December 2005 and nothing in '06 and nothing in '07. And I think one for sure in 2008. But the one that I did in 2008 that I remember clearly was with Ray Bradbury, which was really quite wonderful just to be able to say you did it.
Yeah.
And then,
Feather in the cap, if you will.
yeah, and then almost, well, just kind of a dream come true. Being able to interview the guy who wrote books that you really, really liked. I mean, that was, I'll take that over an Academy Award anytime. Too many losers have those. Anyway, but so nothing in '09 and very few in 2010, then quite a few in 2011. And then in 2012, they said, "Listen, will you just take the Saturday night slot?" It's like, absolutely. Well, that was a blessing for me, but it was also a curse for them because, and this is not generally known, but it's a fact. The man who had been with Premiere for 11 years, and I think 8 or 9 of them, as actually the program director for Coast to Coast AM, went into a meeting and said, "We have a problem." They said, "Yeah, what's that?" He said, "Well, the Saturday night guys' numbers are surpassing the entire cume of the rest of the week." And they just sat there. He said, "But there's a solution." "Yeah, what's that?" "Well, George's contract is coming up for renewal. Maybe we ought to look at that." They fired him. And then a short time later, they fired Tom, who was the man who introduced me into their apparatus. And I can tell you why that is. I can't prove it, but I believe it. It's one thing to think something. It's another thing to believe it. And I believe this. This happened coincidentally shortly after the third time that I mentioned you are witnessing the resurgence of global communism. You may not see it now, but you will see it. They will show themselves. Just wait. Just be patient. Hunting takes patience. Sure enough, that happened. And then the other part was, and this might have been even worse, I said, what is happening in South Africa is the test bed and the model for what will happen in the United States, but on a grander scale, because it's a bigger landmass. You are witnessing your future if you don't understand this and take the appropriate countermeasures in advance of it actually visiting you. And so it has all come to pass. Now, right now, or at least it may have concluded by now, but that bloated fathead, Cyril Ramaphosa, with his IQ of about 31, comes to the White House, and President Trump handed this guy, he allowed him to hand himself his own backside. They were playing the recordings of Julius Malema, the maniac with the economic freedom fighters.
The Boer, the farmer, do the dance. That guy?
Kill the Boer with the machine gun, dancing around like a bunch of savages because
Brah,
that's what they
brah,
are.
brah,
They
brah,
can't.
brah.
That's it, brother. That's it. This stuff is
But we're
playing in
not
the.
supposed to notice certain
Well, I'll
things,
tell you
right? We're
what.
not supposed. Noticing is a bad thing in 2025, according to the demons.
Well, they
But go
can't
ahead.
help. They can't help but notice it now because the Don was playing it right there in the meeting room with all these people.
But you know why I think that is? I think that's because under Obama, I call this whole thing the Obama doctrine, and it's a book I have in theory, and I'm sketching it out. I just got to chop it out. I do 2, 3, 4 hours a day covering it, but I really think they got cocky in a way that no administration in the United States history has ever gotten cocky. They felt invincible, omnipotent, omniscient, all powerful. There was nothing that could stop Obama and his ilk. And they got more brazen with each passing month. And they kept skirting rule after rule, law after law, blew past treason, made the Nixon. Oh my gosh, you mean you had a recording device inside of Watergate? How dare you? You better get rid of this Nixon fella. Well, if
Yeah.
that's what got Nixon thrown out, can we step back and see 1,000 times the magnitude of what Obama was doing? And it's Obama, Biden, and now we're seeing the auto pen and just trying to figure out who was actually running the country for the past 4 years. I'm taking
Well,
you
that's
off
an easy one,
back
but
to
it's a bitter pill for a lot of people to swallow. But I'll give you. I'll give your audience just a little hint. The state of Israel is talking about going on their own in an attack on Iran. Now, this goes all the way back to the USS Liberty when Israeli jets attacked the USS Liberty and killed 130 something people. If you go to the net and you look at USS Liberty images, and you'll see this thing was just shot to just holes all over it. Now they like to downplay this. There are also there was film in those days, but there is video of jet fighter pilots. They're so mad, throwing their helmets down on the deck because Lyndon Johnson told them to stand down and do not help the USS Liberty. They were going to sacrifice that boat in furtherance of pulling us into a war in the Middle East. And it didn't work. So when you consider this one little state is our only friend in the Middle East. Now, why is that? It's because of their expansionist policies that put at a supreme disadvantage everybody else in the region. They want to take all of Gaza. They want to take Syria. They're holding the territory that they engaged in combat in. They're holding those. So that they want Syria and Lebanon. They want a little piece of Iraq, and they want a little piece of Egypt up to the Nile. They're building their Ben Gurion Canal, which is wide enough, will be wide enough to allow a ship to come and go simultaneously, whereas the Suez Canal is only wide enough for one to go in and one to go out. So they're gonna gyp the Egyptians out of their canal money doing
they're
that.
putting the jip in Egyptian.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's quite a stretch if you can gyp an Egyptian, right? But and people don't understand really, and you can't blame them because it's not being taught. But Iraq, for example, was known as Mesopotamia. And ancient Babylon is around there in that same region too. They don't understand that Iran is the ancient Persians. They don't understand that the Russians are the ancient Rus. They do not know that the Persians and the Rus got together and destroyed the kingdom of Khazaria. They don't know these things. If you start bringing these things up, oh, they just recoil. You know, the first thing out of their mouths is anti-Semitism. A Semite is nothing more than a person who speaks one of, I believe it's 14 languages, including Aramaic, Hebrew, and Arabic. So the biggest anti-Semites of them all are the ones who criticize Jesus because he spoke Aramaic. In other words, people don't know what the H they're talking about. They just don't. And it's not their fault. They don't have the time to study this, and they rely on the mainstream news media to tell them what they should believe. And look where we are. I mean, the mainstream media, which that term that you don't like,
Legacy media, lying legacy media, demonic deep
lying
state
legacy
Democrat
media,
media, however you choose, but not
L
mainstream.
L2M, um, they guide the narrative. But you have to look at who owns all these mechanisms. Who owns the media? Who owns the publishing? Who owns the movie business? Who owns the banking? Who owns the publishing? Who owns the movies? Very powerful lobby. All of the means of communication are locked down, which is why, oh, this alternative media, what did they think they're doing? We're actual journalists. And then you see this montage of all these people from all of these different networks saying the same thing, the same words in the same order. Either it's the walls are closing in, or it's an existential threat to our democracy, or Taylor Swift is not a psyop. I mean, this is not coincidence. This is scripted mind control. People say, oh, mind control, that's a little bit of a stretch. No, it's not. Look at the behavior of the public at large. And these riots that spontaneously burst out. Do you know if you go to the internet right now, and by the way, they're not paying me to say this. If you want a good browser, use Yandex, the Russian browser, and you'll get results that Google will never show you, ever. And they are sources that you may know, but the articles from these sources do not appear many times in Google. So it's a control thing. Now, we got three things in 1913, right? We got the Federal Reserve, which allows you to create money from nothing, which I suppose at a stretch people could say, aha, Babylonian money magic. I don't know, maybe, I guess. We got the income tax, and we got the Anti-Defamation League. Now, why would you need those three things in that combination in that year? We'll just leave it there. That's for anybody who wants to ponder it.
And was there a Titanic connection to that?
Oh,
I don't know. Let's
that
talk
thing,
about Jekyll Island. Yeah, let's let them research. Those are breadcrumbs. They can take that.
that Titanic did not strike an iceberg. That's an absolute lie. It's a complete lie. So much of this has just been a lie because the ones who want to run the world craft the lies, and through their network of outlets, they release these lies into the world, and using the absolute guiding principle of propaganda, which is repeat, 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 people believe what they want them to believe. Now, there's some freelancers out there that are free thinkers that don't buy it, but not nearly enough. The human being is made to be led, and it's going to be led by something. But if you go to Yandex and you type in, how do I organize a nationwide protest? Up will come a bunch of companies. You can contact them, and they'll get you a nationwide protest going like that. So people could say, you mean it's all a simulation? No, I mean, you could extrapolate it to that point if you wanted to, but no, it's not a simulation. What it is it's an inability of too many people to not think independently, to cover the ground they stand on, and just proceed with their lives, while these other ones proceed with their lies.
John, pause there for a second. Let me just play a clip of this. I believe this is what you were referencing a moment ago.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
So proud.
But
we are concerned about trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become
biased and false news, John, as if the alphabet agencies putting this stuff out aren't sharing biased and false news. It's hilarious on its surface. When I grew up, I thought the news was telling us who, what, where, when, why, how.
Right.
Man, was I wrong? Sorry, I just want to play another moment of this, and then I'll go back.
I'm glad you did.
all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories.
By the way, fun fact, playing this video will get this video banned on YouTube because they claim a copyright of this compilation because they had to flag it, because flagging it will keep people from viewing it, and they'll say we can't share it in certain countries because of a copyright. But I don't care. I'm leaving this as my breadcrumbs out there because it's powerful. That's why they're trying to hide it.
Without checking facts first.
the sharing of biased and false
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is
They're trying to push their agenda to control it. It can make sure that they are in control of what people think.
exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And I love that line. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. They've changed it where this is extremely dangerous to our bureaucracy. This is extremely dangerous to our monopoly. That's what they're really saying.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is
Our
extremely
monopoly.
dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely 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 dangerous to our democracy.
Anyway, you get the point. It goes on. This is one of the best videos ever made, John. And it's,
You know, these morons are an existential threat
yes,
to our democracy.
our bureaucracy, our monopoly. Yeah, if you just change Trump is a threat to our democracy, you just change it to bureaucracy. He's a threat to our bureaucracy. And you're like, yes, that's just shift it. That they're saying the right thing. Just change the word. It's three fingers pointing back when they're pointing at someone else. Three are pointing right back at them.
Why do you think we don't have a democracy?
A
We have a
constitutional republic,
constitutional-
if we can keep it.
We have a republic, a constitutional republic. Do you know what Bolshevik means? Bolshi is big. Vik is person or man. Bolshevik means majority party, majority people. That is pure democracy. Where if you've got 51 and they've got 49, the 49 do what you tell them to.
That's two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that that would get people's attention, but unfortunately, it does not. Now, back to the voiceover thing and the buzz of the buzz. And
That's why you're a professional, John. You're bringing us right back. We went off-roading for a bit. Now we're right back.
Got to bring us
Right
around full
context.
circle, man. And by the way, thanks for letting me roll back the calendar to 1965, smoking that cigarette. I know that was visible, but anyway, the secret to my youth
Have at
and intellectual acumen, you know.
Yeah, but that might be the secret to that one of the most discernible radio voices of all time. So, you know, if RJ Reynolds in some form or manner is responsible for that, have at it. It served you well.
Well, Chat GPT spoke very highly of me. The number one guy is deceased as of 2008. I'm number two, so I'm supposed to be the top guy. But seriously, I've had the most amazing career that anybody could ever hope for. I didn't ask for it; it just happened. BBC Radio 1 for 7 years, 2FM out of Dublin. They're still using me on BBC 2. This guy called and said, hey, man, I just heard you on BBC 2. I said, can you send me the clip? I remember doing anything for BBC 2. And And it's this little gal's got she's got this little segment. She calls her half-hour wower, and sure enough, this one guy goes, "But now across the UK." And then I come on and go, "It's the half-hour wower," and it's me doing that. And so I contacted a guy who's a studio owner, has been forever over there. I said, "Can you look into this?" Crickets, because what he found out was exactly what I thought. It's either an AI duplication, and it's a good one too, or I don't remember doing anything for Sarah Cox's half-hour wower, but them's the breaks. No big deal. I mean, Hit 95 in Berlin, this wonderful electronica show. It was around for 20 years called Sensation. It went all over the world except the United States. And I was the in-arena voice for that. I went over there a couple of times to see it. You never said 30,000 people. They had two versions, the white edition and the black edition. The white edition was a little bit softer, not very much, but somewhat. And everybody dressed in white. And the following weekends, the first 2 Saturdays of July, and the second one, everybody dressed in black, and it was real hard style, you know. And you have never seen 30,000 more beautiful, well-behaved people gathered together just for the music and to have a good time in your life. No violence. I think in those 2 years, some little gal died because her friends weren't looking after her, and she took a little bit too much of something and passed away. But that's the only time in the whole 20 years. That's the only time that ever happened. And it was just a beautiful thing. So they called it quits after 20 years. COVID shot it down. You know, that damaged it. And of course now I was standing in a bank yesterday, and here comes this guy. I'm not kidding you. He had a satchel full of cash about this big and set it over the counter. It was all cash, bundles of bills like this thick. And
like a
lots
Bugs Bunny cartoon with like the dollar sign on the side of the burlap sack or something, like they robbed
That's
it.
the only thing it didn't have. You could tell he was carrying in a rucksack full of a big, like I'm going to be gone for a month size pack.
Right.
This guy's wearing a mask in the bank, and I thought, how things have changed.
Yeah.
I thought wearing a mask in a bank would raise the alarm in some quarters, but no, it's commonplace now. So anyway, as the society gets more and more stupid, and people don't realize that smell is particulate. If you walk past a corpse and you go, "Ooh, that's actual dead guy," that's little tiny particles of dead guy being registered by your sense of smell. That's what that is. So if you can put your mask on and smell bacon frying over there. This would suggest that a virus, which by the way has never been isolated in the history of virology. It's impossible. Viruses cannot be isolated, but I digress. Doesn't that suggest that whatever it is that infects you could go through that mask like a 30-06 round through a rose bush? If you can put that paper or cloth mask on, somebody goes, and you smell that cigarette smoke, you think that mask is going to stop an infectious element from going into your face? It won't.
Yeah, the best analogy I heard was it's like putting up a chain link fence to keep the mosquitoes out.
That's exactly right.
That's not.
That's a real good one right there.
Anything.
That's a good one.
I can visualize 1,000 mosquitoes flying right through a chain link.
Well, one thing leads to another, and Julie Talbot, the president of Premier Radio Networks, calls me up and says, "Hi, John, this is Julie Talbot." I said, "Hi, Julie, how are you?" I knew what it was. Because on the third mention of you're witnessing the global resurgence of communism, and then I started talking about South Africa and how that's the model for what they want to have happen here. Okay, that's it. We want to talk about Bigfoot. We'll look at Bigfoot. I don't give a flying you know what about Bigfoot. Habeas corpus. Bring me the body, then we'll talk about Bigfoot. In the meantime, get out of here. She said, "Well, we want to go another direction." Yeah. And I said, well, what direction were we going that we no longer wish to go? She said, "Oh, I love your program. I love you. We have a lot of conservative." "Oh, you do?" So I went, So Dave Hodges, the Common Sense Show. I didn't know him, but he was right. I mean, I was getting all kinds of stuff. "Oh, Wells has got the best bumper music." Well, I was a professional disc jockey. Of course, I can come up with a few good tunes I think people will like, just based on experience,
And you are a musician as well. You didn't just play you didn't just play the songs on a record or on a digital file. Like you are a musician, much like myself. We've sang and played guitar and played percussion, and we know our way around to one degree or another. It's a useful skill to have.
Brian, I have 12 guitars.
Hey, John, those are rookie numbers. We're gonna have to boost those numbers. Those are rookie numbers.
Kinda.
We gotta get.
I mean, 25th anniversary, Les Paul. I mean, Strats, Tellys, even a Rickenbacker 360
Oh yeah,
with the double jacks. You know.
Yeah,
Stuff
you've
like
never
that.
met my father, but we call his place Bob's Knick-Knack Shop. And my whole life growing up, it was just everything was either a music museum or it was a trading depot. I mean, stacks of boxes of guitars and different
ridiculous
vintage drum sets, and that's the world I grew up in. So it was always trading this for that, or picking this up, or selling that one, or yeah. It's either
I love it.
It's in the pulse. You put your fingers out and you can feel that the pulse of a musician beats a little differently. We don't think linearly. We're not to say we're not mathematical. We are analytical, but we also kind of step out and we can zig and zag. We kind of look at the greater picture instead of getting wrapped up in the minutia, I think, as musicians. But that's how I view it, at least.
Well, Hodges put out the word that the coast cut me loose. And here came all these ticked off listeners. They funded the whole program in about 15 minutes. It was really insane, and that was in 2014. We did our first show in February, first part of February, 2014. We're up to, let's see, last night's program was number 2,500 and something. What is it? 2,521, and that's does not include the Saturday night programs. We start with just one program, call it the Arc Midnight. Even though I don't know why, but it worked out all right, because now, I mean, we broadcast 6 nights a week. It's just 2 hours a night, Monday through Friday, but it's 3 hours on Saturday. But it's the Arc Midnight.
You named Caravan because of Robin Troyer or something. There was.
I did.
Right.
I did.
I remember you mentioning that.
This little gal used to go, oh, you know, it was a wonderful world for a single man in those days. This little gal calls up and she wants to hear this song called "I'm Out to Get You." And I went, well, are you? And she goes, well, yeah, kind of. And so, okay, one thing led to another. But anyway, I couldn't find the song anywhere. And then I found the record. I said, what is this doing here? Caravan to Midnight. Let's hear some of this. Sure enough, the song she wanted to hear was on there, because we had about 3,000 records in bookcases behind us, plus 2 real big stacks of them over here, you know, so thick, you know, of albums. And so I played it. It was a great song. And but none of the songs on that album suggested that Caravan to Midnight was an appropriate title in some way. So all these years go by, you know, however many of them there are, a lot of them. And I thought Caravan to Midnight, yep, because midnight is where it all changes. Right at that moment, everything that has been is gone, and everything that is to come is now proceeding. So we went with that. But on Saturdays, we do Arc Midnight, the intelligence briefing, and release all kinds of stuff out there that many people believe they find it useful, but they also find it, I can't believe you guys are talking about this. Like, well, we are talking about it. I just facilitate it. The people who come on, I'll throw in some analysis, you know, if called upon, or I feel like it. But the rest of the time, it's all about the guest and what the guest has to bring to the program. And last night we had on, it's spelled TEWIEWESSELS, but it's actually Tievi. It's not Tiwi. It's Tievi Vessels. And he is a real South African farmer, and he knows what's going on down there. And so today, interestingly, here comes Ramaphosa to the White House and just makes an idiot of himself. So these farm murders and all this stuff, and you know, and then these stupid commie-crats, they call themselves Democrats. Let me just state for the record. Oh, you know, we can all get along. No, we can't. No, Democrats, people who can belong to that party now are either really screwed up in the head, or they're just plain evil, or they're hardcore communists, which would be a component of number 2.
Or they're on the take, or they're financially dependent upon just reading the script, like those people that we just played that compilation of. They've
Yeah,
been
everybody
bribed
needs
and
a job.
blackmailed to some degree, and it's just follow the script. Like Chuck Schumer said, we got 6 ways from Sunday to mess with you. The deep state will come get you if you don't follow along. And yeah, no logical person is saying, hey, that Democrat Party, let's read out the top 30 things on their agenda. Oh, wow. I'm like lockstep in like 27 or 28 of them. It's like,
well,
one or
here's,
two maybe on a generous day.
Brian, it really comes down to, and people say, oh, we don't want to talk about politics or religion. Well, why don't you want to talk about politics or religion? Well, because those are the things that divide people the most. That means they're the most important things that you could ever talk about. That's what that means. At least in my mind, that's what it means. These people are anti-God, anti-Christ. They are anti-human being. They want to turn boys into girls, girls into boys, or some of them into both, turn them into hermaphrodites or whatever. They teach pornography to little children in schools. They allow all these countless hordes, I mean, individual hordes, not just one big horde, but individual hordes of people to come into this country illegally and defend their rights. But they lose their minds over 59 South African farmers. I've been blowing that stuff out about South Africa for a long time. And in early part of 2014, I was able to meet Brendy Richards. And when I saw her come on the screen, I don't mind telling you, I thought, I'd been divorced I hadn't been married for 20 years. And I thought, wow, why can't I get somebody like that?
I wish she would call up and request a song.
Brilliant. She was really, well, listen to this. I went up to Redding, California, Redding, California. That's a spook town, by the way, big time. Mount Shasta and all of that. And Dane Wigington's up there doing his geoengineeringwatch.org.
Here, hold on. You dropped a lot right there. Dane Wigington, the geoengineering, the spooks. What did you say in between those? Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta, there's a bunch of weird
that's a big Bigfoot area, a lot of missing people disappearing center of the earth.
I'll bet. There's more underneath that thing than you can see on the outside, probably. But I go to a conference to do the MC thing, and this I'm going to say this little guy. He's about 5'5", 5'6", wearing these Vietnam era clothes. He'd been chatting up the office girls at the Caravan offices because he was a fan of the show and all that. Well, he's there, and he walks out of the crowd. And he said, Brendy's in Dallas. I've got her number. And I went, what? And he goes, yeah, Brenda says, stay right here. And I just held on to him. I said, go give me a piece of paper and a pen. Go now. And he goes, I'll give it to you after the show. I said, no, don't go anywhere. Give it to me now. And the way he got this was Brendy accidentally put her telephone number public for about 1 minute on her LinkedIn. And Harry was right there, and he got that number, and he gave it to me, and I rang her up.
That's serendipitous.
Oh, yeah. And then 3 dinners, 1 trip to the state fair, and that was in 2015. So it was a year later, and a little bit over a year. But she came to the United States. She was in Seattle. I mean, this was. I'm not trying to make it more intriguing than it really is, but this was an operation to get her out of there because she'd already gotten the dead bird in the mailbox, which means you're about 4 days off from being deceased. That's what that means.
Who gives that? That's like, here's your warning to get out of Dodge or else I'm coming back.
Oh, they don't want you to get out of town. They just want to scare you before they kill you. And they make a biology experiment out of you while they're doing it. It's the most savage kind of murder you've ever seen. I wouldn't even go into any detail whatsoever on your program or on even my own program.
I was going to say, do I dare even ask for some of that? But I read the story of the grandmother having to, with her 3 granddaughters. And you see something on a meme, but if it's not linked to an original source, it's like stories are shared. And I don't know what's.
Oh, they do things like
not, but there is a deep-seated anger and a problem in South Africa that has been going on for a long time. And I consider you to be one of the foremost experts because you were taking, what did you say in one of our previous chats? If you're taking flack, it must mean you're over the target.
Yeah.
And you've been onto this story way before it was popular.
Nobody wanted to hear it because they couldn't believe it. It was too detached from their reality. They couldn't find any interest in it. But yeah, I was on a cigarette contract. This is really odd. I just checked in. This is before mobile phones. I always made it a point to get the newest tech as quickly as it became available. Mobile phone, even a fax machine. I mean, the fax machine was invented in 1865, believe it or not. We didn't get them until 120 years later, where they were affordable. The Navy had them since the 50s. I bought a huge studio building, one of the best studios that was ever built in Dallas some years ago, and it had one that was about half the size of a pool table. This thing must have been 10 grand, and that was some real money in those days. But anyway, the what happened was an operation was organized, and she was made to think it was her idea, keeping it on the down low, get her out of the country. Because they do things like they'll take the little kids and they'll pour boiling water down their throats until it kills them. They kill them that way. It's the worst thing you've ever heard. Brian, you would it would absolutely vapor lock your mind to know what they do to people over there. It defies belief that they could even come up with something this savage.
Have you watched Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah,
That's right.
It's worse than that.
And it's coming from where? Like, this is deep seated, going back to the root of this. The
First
claim that land, weren't these Dutch farmers from the 1600s that
1652, there were no blacks on the South African Cape at all. Zero, zip, nada, nobody. You might see a bushman come through every once in a while, the little Namas, a little short hair. If you've ever seen The Gods Must Be Crazy, that's a funny movie. That's a Nama, just a little guy. They're gentle little people. They just wander. They're not warlike in any way, shape, or form. The British are the ones who invented the concentration camp. They starved tens of thousands of South African women and children in them. The British government has been responsible for more misery across this planet than you can shake a stick at. That's just the plain truth of it. People do not know
fitting
this
justice? Is it some sort of I don't know, what did Ron Paul call it? Blowback? Watching England get invaded, watching all of Europe get invaded. I call that the Obama doctrine of forced colonization of every sovereign nation, full of people, non-resident, non-citizens from parts unknown, be it Afghanistan, Iraq.
It's worse than that. It's called Coudenhove Kellergie.
Coudenhove Kellergie.
Coudenhove. Coudenhove dash Kellergie. K-A-L-E-R-G-I. Coudenhove Kellergie. And listen, I don't want to take license on your program, but the idea is I can just toss this out and then people can be outraged and they can say, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But if you look into it, you'll find out I'm telling you the truth. This is not shop talk. Where did the 10 tribes of Israel go? Look at a map. What do you mean? They went to Europe. Oh, look at British heraldry. The big lions on the shield, Richard the Lionheart, wrong. That's the Lion of Judah. That's why all that heraldry has lions and crosses and swords and stuff like that. The 10 tribes of Israel. Israel is not a piece of real estate. Israel is a people. So if you talk about the land of Israel, that means the land where Israel lived. It doesn't mean that that's the name of it. This is Bigfoot country. What do you call the country? Well, we call it Bigfoot, of course. No. People do not know who they are. There is an annihilation protocol. It's been conducted by those that I call the usual suspects. And I realize that I talk about any of these things at great risk. Because did you know to criticize the usual suspects in Soviet Russia would result in the death penalty?
Isn't that what Obama Biden were doing when they blew up that guy in Utah that ran his mouth a little bit? So instead of getting him when he went to Walmart, 300, 400-pound guy, they just exploded his house. What they did to the peaceful J6ers once they opened up their own doors so they could craft a new narrative so we wouldn't have to discuss the 7 swing states or fraud states that magically paused in 2020. It's all kind of like our own government has been weaponized upon us, maybe the most it's ever been during the third and most honest term of Barack Hussein Obama, which was the Joe Biden puppetry. Residency.
Well, look at it this way. This is just a little tidbit. World War I, people go, oh, that's ancient history. Not really. not really. Some of our parents were born in the 20s. Grandparents were born in the 1800s. So a lifetime is not that long. You know, the whole Adam and Eve thing, that's about 6,000 years ago. Were there dinosaurs and monsters and Nephilim and all that wandering around? Yeah, yeah. But 6,000 years, that's quite a few generations, but really not that many. It really isn't. So
Yet when we think back to Roswell, the society we had prior to maybe getting some advanced technology and how far we've advanced, like you said, now we hold all the power in our hands, all the stuff that those books, the Ray Bradburys. I mean, I say this all the time. Events feel like they were a million years ago, and they feel like they were yesterday, like simultaneously, like a totally different life that I didn't live. And it feels like, oh yeah, that just happened. No, that was a long time ago. Like we have like this processing. At least I do. I don't know if you feel that with a lot of stories.
No, I do.
And ancient at the same time.
No, I'm with you. Well, doing that Kaiser Soze thing, let's just look at the timeline here. There was the 1418 War. In 1913, Federal Reserve income tax and the ADL get put together. Next year, 1914, England, France, Germany, Russia, they're all into it, right? We were only in that war for 1 year. When we shifted in 1917, because the war ended in 1918, who shifted out? The Russians. What happened in 1917? The Bolshevik Revolution, right? What did we do? We went into that war to help Britain eke out a victory because they were getting their backsides handed to them, all right? What did we do? We attacked Turkey. Why? Because they were an ally of Germany. Well, again, why? In furtherance of seizing Palestine. And people should know that Article 181 was never ratified. The British moonwalked back out of it. The Palestinians said, we're not doing this. You want 55% of the land, giving us 45. What is this? No. State of Israel is completely illegal. I don't care. You know, we're all people here and all that. Yeah, live and let live. Yeah, that's fine. But if they start making problems, you need to call them out on it. They're our only friend in the Middle East. Why is that? Well, no, why is that? Could it be because they're always raising hell with all the other countries around there? Because as I say, they want all of Palestine, and they want Lebanon, and they want Syria, and they want a chunk of Iraq, and they want a chunk of Egypt. Well, who's building the Ben Gurion Canal? The Chinese. Who controls the port of Haifa? Communist Chinese. So all people have to do, what is all over our Congress? The American Israel Political Action Committee. Well, are any of them holders of dual citizenship? Yeah, about 80% of them. Can you tell me why anybody should be allowed in our Congress that holds citizenship and therefore loyalty to any country in addition to the United States?
John, I'm having a hard time understanding how that guy Shree, the one that was with the Beagles and the testing labs that tried to impeach Trump recently, and he recently backed out. He's not born in America. How is he allowed to serve in Congress? If there's term limits on the president, why are there not term limits on Congress? I'm having a hard time understanding some of the dichotomies, some of the different parallels between what we're dealing with right now. It's like, almost like we're trying to unthink, relearn, and rebuild, reconstruct everything relevant in this country, trying to find a way to adhere to the Bill of Rights and stick to the core tenets that built the country, while trying to find a way to remove the craziness from it. I don't know if we can unscramble those eggs or not.
Brian, this will sound like fundamentalism. You know, let's get out our snakes and go all charismatic here. Let's just leave all that aside. That's nothing but television indoctrination. All that nonsense is. Well, the Salem witch trials, I think 3 women were hanged and they gave it up and they said it was a grave and horrible mistake. It should never have happened, but you never hear that part about it. You never hear about what happened after. People just hold on to these Christians decided to hang these women. It's like they repented on their knees for the rest of their lives and wailed and howled over the wrong they had done. But you don't hear that part of the story. So here's the deal in a nutshell. I urge everyone within range of your broadcast to be your own investigator. Don't Please do. This is not the time to sit on the branch like a baby bird with upturned beak, waiting for the information worm to be dropped in by mama or daddy bird. It's your backside that's on the line. It's your kids' backsides that are on the line, your grandkids. If you don't care about these things, well, then that's fine. Get out of the way. But in the meantime, understand this, and this is based on many years of very, very intensive research, not just to gratify myself and prove myself. I wanted to prove myself wrong so badly. I couldn't do it. This place has been infiltrated all the way down to its core by what we can call communism. Well, totalitarianism by any other name is still totalitarianism. So put whatever label on it you want. But in the end, this is a spiritual war between Father God, the Christians of this world, and the devil who wants you destroyed. Look at how this country has fallen morally. Look who kept us in these wars. Every war of the 20th, just the 20th century, were orchestrated by the usual suspects. Every one of them. And some of these people that are heroes, like Winston Churchill, he was a sadistic drunk. He burned about 110,000 civilians, mostly women and children, to death in the firebombing of Dresden. A fire that was so hot in the center of it, winds exceeded 300 miles an hour. A firestorm is where you've got a fire that's burning so hot that it starts pulling fuel into itself. It almost becomes alive. There are barns and cows and cars and every damn thing being pulled into this fire. And he did that. And what he said about it was, when you have an enemy, you must be prepared to hurt that enemy in every means possible. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what the old drunk said. If there's a hell, Winston Churchill is
sounding a little bit like
he's a maniac.
No, I forgot his name now. Just died. He's the one that kind of got Nixon in all the trouble. Kissinger.
Yeah,
you're sounding a little bit like Kissinger there.
Henry Kissinger,
guy who was lauded.
Spot on, brother. Henry Kissinger's nothing but poison. He made sure. Well, and look at the timing here. Let's go Kaiser Soze again. John Kennedy gets rubbed out in 1963 in November. Following August, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which never happened. And Commander, I think his name was Stephen George Morrison, is Jim Morrison, the singer of The Doors' father.
That's wild.
I don't know. I mean, I think that might be just an interesting coincidence, but the North Vietnamese Navy didn't attack one of our Navy ships. That was a lie. It was a complete lie. We stayed in there for 11 years. Johnson started sending people over in 64. We stayed there until 75. And then they just abandoned the soldiers. This stuff is made to break your heart. They abandoned those people. They sprayed them with all kinds of stuff. Agent Orange, Agent Orange wasn't the only one. They had Agent Green and Agent Blue and Agent Red and Agent Yellow. They had all kinds of chemicals over there like that. This is an annihilation protocol, but we're looking at the people who are doing it. We're not looking what's behind these people's actions. And I'm telling you, it's a spiritual warfare. It's between the believers in and followers of Christ and his arch enemy, the devil. The devil exists. The devil is real. I mean, people don't want to believe it because they think, oh, that's just a bunch of superstition. We can figure all this out. You haven't figured out anything. Is there a single thing regarding the actual nature of life, the nature and the justification, the reason for existence? Is there anything that any of us have figured out? Not outside Scripture. Not at all. And when you find that certain words weren't even added to the Bible until the mid-1700s, the one I'm thinking of starts with a J, but you got to be careful about that. Oh, yeah. If you want to find out who runs you, who owns you, just look at those you can't criticize. And you have your answer. Whoever it is that you are not allowed to criticize, in the case of Soviet Russia, the death penalty awaited if you did. And you'll know who runs you. And this goes all the way back to biblical times. All the way back. Nothing has changed. That whole thing that Solomon said about there's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything you can say, look, this is new? No. It hath already been from ancient times. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, no, I was cutting you off, but, yeah, my dad used to always say about the Bible, it's like, fine, it thousands of years ago, people you don't know, change the names. Change the names to people you know today. It's the same parables, they're the same stories that
Absolutely.
are relevant today if you learn the lessons. I remember reading Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. I had a shoulder surgery, I was down for a little bit doing rehab, so I had a little extra time, and it was right around the housing crash time of, what was that, '07, '08, '09, maybe, '10? '10? That's a weird thing to say, although it's accurate. But yeah, in Atlas Shrugged, I'm like, this thing was written in 53 or 47. All you have to do is change the names. This is Henry Waxman. This is Nancy Pelosi. This is Obama. This is, you just change the names of the characters. The stories remain. In the story you were just talking about with, you mentioned Kennedy briefly. What do you make of Bobby Kennedy and Trump? Trump's over there making peace or making deals, at least in the Middle East, allegedly spurning Israel and Netanyahu, and maybe that's why they tried to take Hegseth out really strong a couple of weeks ago, allegedly, according to some sources. What do you make of Kennedy getting involved in this government, knowing that? I mean, do we just say the deep state offed his dad and his uncle at this point, or it was just a lone nut, a lone gunman, one singular nut job?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, what do you make of the leadership we have right now and the direction we're headed? Is it still just we're in a whole heaping pile of trouble, or do you finally see us moving in the right direction, or a little bit of both?
I think they're an answer to prayer. These guys don't, they could be doing anything. Donald Trump could be busy making his billions or his millions or whatever and playing golf all the time. He wants to serve the country. And I'm not a zealot, but it's like he said, we must be doing something right because they sure are coming at us hard. And everything they've come at him with is based on falsehood. While the Democrat operators and a few of the Republican operators too think the late John McCain and this Mitt Romney character and who's
Liz
that?
Cheney, Mitch McConnell, Adam Kinzinger. Oh, we got a laundry list of rhinos. I have no love for rhinos or Republicans. I like MAGA. MAGA is very different than a Republican or a rhino, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. I call me a fundamentalist, and maybe I am. I think this is an answer to prayer. I'm telling you, I have sometime when we're not, on public display here, I'll tell you about some things that you'll have only my word for it, but I assure you that they happened.
What note do I jot down to remind you of off air, to remind you of the story you were about to just mention? What's a key word?
It just has to. We just write the word supernatural.
Okay.
Because nothing else can explain it. I mean, people can always say, usually to raise their own comfort level a little bit, oh, that's just crazy because they don't want to think about it. But some of the things that I have personally witnessed, they defy explanation, except in one regard. It had to have happened and orchestrated from behind the veil. Well, what we see here is our current reality is just, it's almost like the curtain. You step between the curtain, you part the curtain, step out there to the microphone, the podium, you speak. And all this stuff is going on behind the curtain. All the real stuff is going behind the curtain, but the audience cannot see what's behind the curtain. They just see the presenter standing at the podium, talking into the mic and addressing the assembly. But the audience does not see what's going on behind the curtain. And there's all kinds of stuff going on behind the curtain. There's lighting people and sound people and this and that and the other, and they're getting ready to change a set so that when they do open the curtain, wow, it looks different than it did the last time they opened the curtain. That's what this is all about. Reality is the curtain. What's going on behind what we see, which you can only access through your mind, which would be connected to your spirit. Then you can see. But this is one of those deals where if you don't believe it, and I tell people, you may be on the fence about your spirituality. You may be on the fence about whether or not you believe that Christ is real. You may just not believe it because you can't believe it. If you will allow yourself to believe it, not think it. There's a difference between what you think and what you believe, and it's not easy for many people. But if you can allow yourself to believe it just for a moment, then you'll see it. But if you wait to see it before you believe it, you may never see it, and it might be too late. And because you'll never see it. And there's something that you could have had that you can't have now because we cannot turn loose of our egocentric nature. I am a sovereign creature. You're vulnerable. And the more you think that way, the more vulnerable you are. You know, you owe everything you have to your creator, including your next breath. It's written right there in scripture. Your days are numbered like the hairs of your head, which means your creator knows exactly how many hairs are on your head or whether you have any hair on your head. The point is, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then what? It starts over. So I would just tell people, help yourself. You can help yourself more than anybody can help you in this regard. And that is, reach outside of yourself to the one who sent you here to begin with. Where were you before? Where will you be on the other side? Are you just blinding yourself to a reality because you're afraid it'll scare you? Okay, I understand that. But I can tell you that once you face your greatest fear, your life gets a lot easier because you realize it's not all that scary after all. I can deal with this. Other people have dealt with it. They've dealt with it successfully. A friend of mine just passed away. He's still there. Still there somewhere. They'll come and visit you in your dreams. It's not your mind playing tricks on you. You're just an idiot, dreaming about a departed friend. That's not necessarily true. There are such things as real visitations, and sometimes people get visited from people who've passed away, and some little physical object will be placed next to them, or something moved around a little bit. I mean, nobody ever really dies. Nobody really dies. You go on. Now, they want you to believe that you better just get all you can right now in this current reality. Just get all you can and, die with a smile on your face, because that's it. Lights out. No more. Don't believe
He
it.
who dies with the most toys wins. That philosophy.
I didn't even think much of that when it came out in the 90s. I mean, it's kind of cutesy, I remember
And look,
seeing-
Reagan's era of prosperity kind of had us all thinking about boats and vacations and fancy cars, as you will.
But I mean, how juvenile is that?
Stuff has a limitation.
But but where do you find some depth? Where do you find actual? I mean, these are time-worn words to the point that people get a semantic satiation. They've just heard it so many times that it doesn't mean anything anymore. But what is the real meaning of your life? Is there any meaning to it? Do you want to know? A lot of people just don't want to know. They feel safer.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
It's like you said about this stuff in South Africa. You're like, I don't want to tell you this. I don't want anyone to know this. I hate that I had to, and covering the news as much as I do, I say it all the time. Like, I hate that I have to consume all of this, but I have to distill it and make sense of it to form an opinion on it, to deliver the information. Someone's got to do it. I mean, we have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino go, nah, trust us. Epstein did it to himself. He did it to himself. We looked into it. We looked at it. And to me, I'm going, oh my God. So that means either three things. One, Trump's involved in this and they're covering for Trump in some sort of way. I don't believe that, but that's option one. Number two, Epstein isn't gone. He's in witness relocation. He's just somewhere else. Or three, I don't even know what the third one is. But
he wasn't ever in jail is the third possibility. He was Mossad. He was Mossad, and this character, Harvey Weinstein, who's still sending script notes from his jail cell, they say, who knows? I don't see him, and I don't go over there and pay him a visit, see if he's really there. This guy had some idiot let it get out into the press that, Harvey Weinstein has ex-Mossad agents for his security details. Like, let me see. I think I'd like to have some ex-Mossad agents for my security detail. Let's go to the LA Times. Oh, look, there's one. Ex-Mossad agent seeks gig as security detail. You don't get ex-Mossad agents for your security detail unless you're Mossad yourself. And
maybe you just shot an email to the USAID general email box and, dealt with it that way. But back to Kennedy, though, real quick. People that could have done anything that they wanted, they took out his dad, they took out his uncle, and he's still like, I'm going to make something good out of my life and fix the health for America.
Brian, look at this.
That's a pretty bold stance to take when you literally can feel the crosshairs on you, right?
state of Israel is so desperate now because they've been shown. Look, there's video out there. You can see it. Maybe you have seen it already of Israeli gunships shooting their own people. I mean, anybody that believes that October 7 attack by Hamas is real is kidding themselves. I've spoken with people whose wives were actually in those security little blockhouses, and that woman told me if a bird landed on one of those wires, we'd get a false alarm. You can't come across the wire. A bunch of guys in pickup trucks and hang gliders attacked this militarily superior state with the best intelligence service in the world. It's a lie, and I'm saying it's a lie. And they've killed their own people as well to justify seizing that land. Because as soon as they get Palestine, they're going to seize the rest of Syria. They're going to seize some of Lebanon and those other two countries, Iraq, a little piece of that, and a little piece of Egypt. And now this is their go for broke. Now they're threatening to launch a strike on Iranian nuclear facilities because they think in their desperation that Trump will say, okay, we'll back you up. And I will bet you he will not back them up. He will not back them up. They're on their own now. And it's not the Israeli people. It's their disgusting Zionist government. Always remember something. Now, you don't have to believe me. I don't expect you to. And I tell my audience this, Brian. I do not expect you to believe me. I want to say something that's interesting enough that you'll go, that a-hole, that can't be right. I'm going to investigate this. I want you to prove me wrong. I don't believe you can, but I want you to try. Theodore Herzl established Zionism in 1897. For the symbol, he selected the Star of David. Well, there's just one problem. David never had a star. There is no Star of David. Now, some people will say, well, Seal of Solomon. Yeah. Star of Moloch, Baal worship, all that. Yeah. Look at your dollar bill, folks. Look on the back of the dollar bill. Annuit coeptis novus ordo seclorum, announcing the conception of the New World Order. What's with the creepy pyramid and the eyeball and the cap that's floating above the top? What's with the obelisk in Washington, D.C.? There's an identical one in the middle of the Seine on an island in France. There's one in the city of London. There's one in Vatican City. What's all that about? Now you look over on the right, and that is not an eagle. That is a phoenix. In one of its talons are grasped 13 arrowheads, or 13 arrows. The other hand, it's supposed to be an olive branch, right? Arrows, peace or war. Take your pick. It's up to you. 13 leaves on the olive branch, whatever that is. Up at the top, 13 stars arranged in a manner that looks like the Star of David. What can this mean? And then, of course, if you take the one, leave that one for last. I mean, I don't know how anybody could make this up. It has to be real because these people are into mysticism. The ones who are running it, the ones you never hear of, the ones who are really behind the Bibi Netanyahus, you don't know who they are, and you probably
Like
never will.
above Soros, behind Soros, puppeting Soros, behind those characters?
Soros is the face that we see. Harari is the face that we see. Klaus Schwab is the face that we saw. But the people who are running them, these people are not running things themselves. So anyway, you take the $5 bill, the 10, the 20, the 50, and the 100. You know what you see? If you fold it long ways with the back of it toward you, you fold it long ways away from you, and then make a paper airplane out of it, just right? You will see the Twin Towers standing there. You'll see a disturbance at the top. You'll see a whole lot of disturbance. You'll see them gone as you go from one bill to the next. Then if you take the $1 bill and do the same thing with that, so help me, it makes an image of Goat Man with the triangular chin and the horns and everything. I'm telling you, this is true. And you go, now this is either one hell of a coincidence or this is deliberate. And because these people are so into symbolism and mystical, otherwise arcane, knowledge knowledge known only to the few, they do this stuff right in front of you because there is I can't confirm this, but there is a rumor, a strong rumor that if they confess in some way what they're doing, they won't have to go to hell. Okay, well, I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah, see all that stuff? There you go, folks. Wow, right on, Brian. Amazing.
I love this restream software. I can look something up. I can toss it on the screen in real time. Yeah, I've done this. I've done this. That 20 where you can see different. It's shocking to just glance at it.
I mean, how is something like this even possible unless it's deliberate, unless it's
Unless you're planning decades and decades in advance, or
That's
since
right.
time immemorial, or if we're in the middle of a video game simulation or training ground, whatever it is. Maybe these are the mile markers we're supposed to see, little glimpses, glitches in the matrix. You see the black cat or the red dress, and you go, there was something there. There was a synchronicity. I'm supposed to pay extra attention to this for some reason. I don't know what, but I'm taking extra note of this moment. Yeah, I don't know, but that 20 for me is the biggest one. Just watching, that looks like two towers coming down.
Doesn't it? And then you see in the next one, they're gone, and there's smoke there. At the second one from the top on the right.
Yeah.
That's when it's gone. And how about the dancing Israelis? How about the moving truck that had a drawing of what appeared to be like a 757, a big twin engine Boeing, you know?
I mean, it's still
banking toward the towers, you know? I mean,
24 years after Tower 7 mysteriously imploded, we're still trying to figure out what we're doing and who is doing it. And you see President Trump get up there and he gets shot in Butler. You know, they had no chance to beat him. They didn't in 2020, and they found a way to fortify it, according to that Time magazine article. But they tried to take him out, John. They had a really, but by the grace of God, head turning this way to that way. Otherwise, that's a Gallagher episode with a watermelon and a sledgehammer. Like that would have been the image we could have never unseen live on TV. Yeah. And it didn't work out that way. They are desperate. They know that the jig is up. If we can get through Corona, what was unleashed upon the world during Corona, and still keep fighting back, I mean, we've proven to be more resilient than I thought. But the bad guys have proven to be even worse than I thought. So once again, it's that dichotomy, trying to figure out what do you make of Trump in his comeback? And what do you make of him being attacked the way he was legislatively, trying to Epstein him, throw him into jail for the rest of his life? And whoops, the cameras went off.
Look, he's a man, so he's flawed, as every man is. Only one perfect man ever walked the earth, and we call him, by the way, his name is, I hear this, Yeshua. His name is Yahshua. Yahweh is Father God. That is why it's not Joshua. It's Yahshua. It's not Yeshua. It's not Yeshua. It's just Yahshua. Because Yahweh, the first part of Yahweh's name, is the beginning of Christ Jesus' name. If anybody wants to believe it, good for you. If you don't want to believe it, that's on you. It's not up to me to convert anybody or to impose my opinions and my beliefs on others, but I do want to open the door for them. You remember Moses. Look at me. I can't talk. I can't do anything. I've got a mush mouth. I sound like an idiot. I'll do your talking for you. Just show up. Okay. I mean, yes, Father.
Someone once told me 90% of life is just showing up.
The thing is, you know, and we trivialize these things by saying little sayings like, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Be willing to be called. We are absolutely in the battle of the ages. And you know what? I have to tell you, Brian, we have a news site. And you don't have ads flying up at you all over the place. It's called jellyfish.news. And the inspiration was taken from a Stephen Conrad production because it's true. If you cut a jellyfish in half, you don't kill it. You just, if you cut it in half, you spear it and cut it and whatever, you don't kill it. You make two. And if you go to solve a problem, you make two problems. The problem that you have, and now the problem that you have in solving the problem. And that's the same way it is with news stories. It's a jellyfish. You read and you read the content of the article. But what's the other half? Because this is not all of it. This is just part of it. So jellyfish.news. And if you go to jellyfish.news and you scroll down, you will see you'll see an article by Brendy Wells. Anyway, to finish up on that story, she came on the program and I met her and I married her, and we've been married for 8 years and been together for 9, and it's just been absolutely the most fantastic thing that ever happened to me, because she's over the top brilliant and I just love her. Her writings there, you can get articles by Brendy Wells up there at the top, and her latest one is really quite something. It's all about standing in your authority, because so many people don't think that they have any.
That's
But,
Ask Like a Son, Not a Slave.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's her latest one. And I'll just give you just a little bit. If there is one verse quietly diluted to keep believers passive and powerless, it's John 16:23 through 24. Most of us hear it this way, usually from the King James. Quote, "Whatsoever ye shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Hitherto have you asked nothing in my name. Ask and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full." Sounds lovely, but that's the edited version. Something was removed, 2 lines that completely changed the way we're meant to pray. The original message wasn't just about asking for things. It was about asking with kingdom authority. So here are the words they took out, and I'll be brief. The early Greek manuscripts included something more, and it's so powerful you'll understand why it was silenced, and here it is. Ask without hidden motive and be surrounded by your answer. Be enveloped by what you desire, that your joy may be full. This isn't just inspiring, it's the mechanics of answered prayer. It's spiritual protocol. It teaches us how to ask, not from desperation, not from religious repetition, but as those who live inside the answer, already aligned with heaven's will and tuned to the Father's frequency. One last thing, the real meaning of "in my name." Let's look deeper. In Greek, the phrase "in my name" is, and there's the Greek. Well, "en" means within, or in, or by. Onoma means name, but more than a label. It means character, authority, essence, and mission. So Yahshua wasn't saying, just tack my name on your request. He was saying, ask while standing inside my identity. In other words, quote, "Whatever you ask the Father, while abiding in my character and authority, he will give it to you." It's this kind of depth of understanding that will lead people away from this, oh, that's just a bunch of superstitious nonsense. No, it's not. Jesus was a Jew. Wrong. He was from the tribe of Judah. Big difference. What's all this about Khazarians? That was the roughest crew that ever walked the face of the earth. Go to YouTube and look for Benjamin Friedman, 1961 Willett Hotel, and just listen to what he has to say. And he speaks in that voice, and it's kind of one of those old 61 vintage recordings, but just listen to what he has to say. The ancient Rus, who became the Russians, and the Persians, who are now the Iranians, got together and destroyed Khazaria. The Khazarians were so rough, if you wanted to go to war, they would loan you 40,000 soldiers and take a cut of the spoils. They were wicked. What people do not understand is the Russians are our Christian brothers and sisters. They are Israelites. But you're never going to hear this from mainstream media.
Hold on. Let me. Russians are Israelites.
You bet.
Now, I know that the powers that be, the same ones going after Trump, are going after Russia. Russian collusion, Russian P-tape, you're a Putin puppet. Russia, Russia, Russia. They've been trying to pin the tail on Russia since 2014 when they overthrew Ukraine with Biden, Obama, Victoria Nuland. I mean, they're an Orthodox Christian nation. They're kind of opposing the godly way, the biblical way, the Christian morals and dogma.
Zelensky's a Jewish guy.
Now, that's not to say Putin's a perfect guy or a nice guy or a good guy. Like you said, all humans are flawed. And
do we really
KGB guy, and he's got plenty of blood on his hand. But the obsession to spark a potentially nuclear World War III by poking the Russian bear has been the most confusing thing for me to unwrap, John.
Now, this may be a little controversial for you, Brian. It might be a little controversial, but here's the thing. Why did the Vikings call Lord Jesus the White Christ? My son has his name written in Aramaic on his wrist in a tattoo, and he ran into a kid the other day. I could say a kid, they're in their 30s. And he said, the guy looked at it and said, John, and he goes, yes. He said, are you Christian? He said, yes. He goes, where are you from? He said, I'm from the state of Israel. He said, Dad, this young man had bluer eyes than mine and this blonde hair. I said, that's a real Israelite. Why is there a war on white people? Why do we keep going? Why are they going after the South Africans? Apartheid. See, these dumbasses don't understand. Excuse me. These people do not understand.
Let it rip, John. You have carte blanche. Let it.
They don't understand what apartheid was, Brian. It was to keep the tribes away from each other. It's the Hutus and the Tutsis. It's that whole Rwanda thing. They cannot get along. I've got an article that just sits on my as one of the tabs up here. The tribes over there. It was like, wait a minute. How about each of the tribes have their own homeland? This is a good thing. And it was. And guess who got in there and agitated? The usual suspects. By the time it was all over, they fought a 24-year war at the northern border. Of course, there's only one border, and that's the northern one. The rest of it's ocean. Because they were not having a Christian nation. First heart transplant. Christian Barnard, that Brendy's actually related to distantly, but anyway, that's a story for another time. The full body scan. The people don't know about these things. Let me see if I've got them up here. Hold on now. I still have this tab up. Oh, here we go. I went right to it. It
now,
says,
by the way, if you have the tab up, you might be able to pop this on the screen. Maybe that's.
I got it on two separate computers. I got a couple.
I know I'm asking you to maybe pilot a vessel you've never sat behind before. So,
but you're a pilot, right? Indiana Jones, right? How hard can it be? Let's see. The digital laser is a South African invention. Let's see what else. Digital laser. I'm scrolling down. Biomedical stem cell technology. We got the full body X-ray scanner. We have the retinal chiroprobe. We have the well, it's called a creepy crawly. It was developed by Ferdinand Chauvier from Springs in the mid-70s. Basically a vacuum cleaner for a swimming pool, collects debris and takes the hassle of pool cleaning. We have one out there in the pool. It's insane. And it goes on and on. Affordable solar power. Let's see what else. The CAT scan. These are all South African inventions. Prattley's putty wanted to create a type of glue that to hold electrical components and inadvertently created something much stronger. It even helped send man to the moon. Prattley's putty was famously used by Apollo 11 during the moon landing to hold bits of landing craft together. It goes on and on. Oil from coal, heart transplant. I mean, on and on. And you would think these were just a bunch of black-hating, mean old white men. They're not. They're a hardcore, solid Christian nation. They were destroyed by the usual suspects, the same ones who stole what they call Israel now, which is simply the state of Israel, because I say again, Israel is a people. It is not a piece of real estate. It's not. Oh, I can just sense the outrage out there. Well, look into it, and you'll find out I'm telling you the truth.
John, let me play you this.
There's no agenda here. I don't care what the truth is. I just want it. Go ahead, Brian.
Whatever it is, let the chips fall where they may. I just want to know who, what, where, when, why. This one here, this is from 23 minutes ago, related to the topic you're discussing. President Trump is playing videos for the South Africa president showing claims of genocide in his country. Here's Peter Ducey.
And it's worth pointing out that is definitely the most awkward Oval Office meeting since Zelensky was here. It ended a little bit better because I can see the vehicle. It is not leaving. The South African delegation is not leaving early. They will be sticking around for lunch. But really, when you watch that, it seems like the Trump foreign policy doctrine is a lot like the old slogan for the MTV show The Real World, where people stop being polite and start getting real. And that's what we just saw from President Trump.
Thank God.
Talk about it, John. Preach.
I'm happy to have had any part in this.
Same.
I am happy to have been a part of any of this because we have discussed this extensively on Arc Midnight, the intelligence briefing. By the way, if you don't mind me putting in a plug here.
Put all the plugs in. That's, you're here to let people know how to You know, you're leaving breadcrumbs back to your program. You're on every night and you do several hours a night. It's good interviews, good guests. I'd been listening for a while. I'm like, God, I got to get back to John. I'll get back to John soon. I'll start booking guests again. And I'm like, one of these days. So leave as many breadcrumbs and plug away, please.
Well, TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live. We have a 24-hour stream there. Every night you will hear the program as it originates, which is 9 Central. It goes to 11 Monday through Friday. It goes 9 to midnight on Saturday. That's about, I mean, it'll wear you out if you just keep doing this. We do 7 nights a week if we could, but I don't think we could physically withstand it, really. But you can always hear those programs. And I have been beating that. I don't like to do the we're the best and we're this and we're that. And you need to come to us. I don't like to do that. But I'm telling you, we've been on the South Africa thing before, a long time before it was even talked about, let alone fashionable to discuss it. And I am so happy to have had any part in revealing to the world what a monstrous situation the Dutch descended Afrikaans people, the Afrikaners, the hell that these people have been through. You think these disgusting Venezuelan trained Arago guys are rough? I would not take the liberty of describing to you how these people are murdered. It is beyond belief. But I'll also tell you this, and this actually happened to my sister-in-law. They were about to be attacked. They do these farm attacks. They rent their guns from the cops, and then they bring the guns back to the cops. And if you've had any kind of a prescription for anything, that they can say, "Oh no, we cannot give you a weapon permit." Well, the criminals go and rent their guns from the cops. I saw a video the other day of a woman who had gone into a police station, a white woman. Well, they were pulling her pants off of her and shoving her into a back room after slapping her around and knocking her to the floor and all of that at the police station. That's what they're dealing with over there. And nobody wants to hear about it because of the people who control the media. They don't want that stuff out there. They want to take South Africa because it is rich in 2 things, natural resources and talent. You know, these guys even made a howitzer. You know, the howitzer, the big cannon, when you spread the legs out on the back of it and you got the cannon there. They made one you can actually drive around. You don't need to hook a truck up to it, move. I mean, it's innovation after innovation after innovation, but they don't want any of that. And nobody can deny that there is a war on white people. There has been for a long time. But people will go into denial about that. Well, those people, they mean they're... Listen to Pastor David Manning. His language gets pretty rough. As a matter of fact, he officiated our wedding. And the sweetest thing I ever heard anybody say was, he said, Brenda and John...
Hold on, wait, hold on. His language gets rough. And of course, he officiated our wedding. My head went to 7 places. Using
the gentlest man,
language to betroth.
He is a take no prisoners pastor. He really is. And he criticizes the way that black people, he's black as black can be, but he is a real man who loves people. Mm-hmm. And the thing that he said at our wedding, when he said, Brenda and John, there will be, I got to go easy here because it was so sweet. It makes me a little bit emotional. He said, there will be many wonderful days, but there will never be another day like this one. And I'm telling you, I have waited for this woman my whole life. By the way, she's got a cookbook out now. It's called Survival Food, South African Heritage and Cuisine. And I'm telling you, you will absolutely love the food. You will love the stories. She has all the conversions for metric to English standard in her book, and places for you to write your notes. This food is so delicious you won't believe it, and it'll barely put a pound on you. I mean, it's just excellent. So,
what's the best dish? What's the best? What's the best dish? Pick one. You're on death row. You got one meal left, John. Which one are you going with?
Well, I personally like the potjie, which is like a stew. But the thing is, that's what it's called, a potjie.
Sounds like a toiki. Yeah, for Thanksgiving, what do you have? See, I'll have a toiki.
I'm gonna have a potjie. A toiki? No, a potjie. Not a toiki. No, they're all good. There are breads in there and soups and stews and it's all about flavor. You know, it's the way that style of combining different spices that produces this unique flavor. And it's not like, I mean, it's just delicious. People are just raving about it. It's you can get it on Amazon, or if you want an inscription, you just ring us and Brandy will sign it for you and send it off. But she's done really well with it, and people really enjoy what's going on. I realize we've gone kind of far afield here, but I'm so happy to have been able to, and it's been years of raising awareness until finally we got a president who will actually do something, and that is President Trump. And call me a fundamentalist, call me whatever you want. I don't care. I don't care. I don't. I've been too far down the road to care about that kind of thing. I think he's a gift from God. I think I think he is the last line of defense against what we were about to experience under the homosexual communist Barack Obama and his man wife and all these nauseating protocols. This is exactly the way that Germany was in the 20s. The first transgender surgery was performed in Germany in the 20s.
Wasn't that in Weimar?
Yeah, the Weimar Republic. That's right. And all this stuff about Nazis and Hitler and all that, people don't know anything about that. They don't know that the German Air Force flew over London repeatedly, dropping leaflets saying, "We do not want a war with you. We need to get together because the real threat are the Bolsheviks, the Soviets. They are going to crush all of us." And all this stuff about 6 million Jews killed in the concentration camp. What, really? In buildings the size of a 3-car garage with the International Red Cross coming and going, who could only come up with 271,000 people, who died mostly from typhus and starvation because they were bombing the hell out of the supply lines. Well, who are you going to feed first? You're going to feed your soldiers, or you're going to feed your workers? Was it wrong? Yes. Was it as been described? No. But what is never mentioned is the 66 million mostly Christians, 60 million Christians, 6 million additional, Azerbaijanis or just assorted people that were killed by the Bolsheviks and the communists, the Soviets, from 1918 to 1957. You don't hear anything about that. And you probably won't. Well, you just did. So if you don't believe me, good. I hope it makes you mad as hell. And I hope you go, I'm going to prove that bastard wrong. That's what I'm going to do. Do it. You're on your way to enlightenment.
Do you have a guest or two that really did other than yourself, of course, but like a guest that maybe written or done some books or created content that people should check out to dig deeper into some of this stuff, like in particular on these topics?
If you want, I'll tell you what, he comes on the program sometimes. His name is Mike King, and he has a permanent subscription to be able to go into the New York Times archives. And his website is realnewsandhistory.com. Now, he's snarky, and he uses a little bit off-color language, I think what he does is deprecate himself a little bit to make himself seem a little bit more real. But he's put out a line of books, everything from, for example, he's got one called St. Joseph of Wisconsin. That would be Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy wasn't a bad guy, but you'll hear these puppets in media talk about, oh, this is McCarthyism. Well, all of those people he investigated turned out to be communists, and none of them denied being communists, but he was vilified. And then you've got mine side of the story. Tell you a good one. I think you'll find this interesting. There was this big antique mall right across from Love Field in Dallas. It caved in, the roof caved in. There was some horrible storm, and this place was wonderful. Everything from furniture, you just got, is that really here? To an amazing collection of books. And I was in there one day and I thought, I've heard about this for years. I'm going to buy one. So I bought a 1939 publication of Mein Kampf. And then I bought his other one called My New Order. Not New World Order, but My New Order. Well, this apparently I haven't read this one yet, even though I've had it for some years, because it's about that thick. And it was put together by a French guy, and it seems to be comprised of mostly his speeches and so forth. So I just set that aside. But I read Mein Kampf. I couldn't find references to Jews in the book at all. Now, there may be some there, but I didn't find them. So I had a friend from Linz, Austria, which is the town that Adolf Hitler was born in. And I tease him. I go, yeah, whatever was going on in Linz. Yeah. And he'd go, no one was born in Linz, okay? So I was talking to him about Mein Kampf, and he goes, oh, John, I tried to read Mein Kampf, and it made no sense. The sentences went on forever, and it was just nonsense. About 2 years later, the subject came up again. He goes, John, he was my flight instructor, the best flight instructor anybody could ever have. Austrian, hardcore, Teutonic. It must be this way, and it must be that way, because if it's not, you will crash. Right, gotcha. He told me, I read Mein Kampf in English, and it made so much sense. So let's go Kaiser Soze here. What does that mean? If he read it in German and it made no sense, but he read it in English and it made complete sense, what does that suggest? Well, to me, it suggests...
Hold on. Wait. That's hypothetical as you're getting to the point. But if it doesn't make sense in German, but it does in English, you know where you're going with this. But I'm listening, going, all right. Well, what is it?
It was written in English and translated,
and
it was translated poorly into German.
There was a website, maybe it still is, called Blah Blah Fish.
Yeah.
And you would translate something into Taiwanese or Cantonese, and then it would come back to Spanish, and then you're playing the telephone game. And by the time it comes back to English, you're like, what? I don't even know what I'm looking at here. And some people say that's what happened with the King James version of the Bible once they went through the Council of Nicaea and chopped out a whole bunch of relevant stuff. Other people say that stuff wasn't relevant. Yeah, I don't know. We could parse that out forever, I suppose. But so you're saying it was written in English and then translated to German.
I suspect that either that or it was written and then republished in a very poorly translated manner of German. But my friend Wolfgang said it made no sense whatsoever. It was the most stupid thing I've ever read. The sentences went on and on and on and on, line after line. Well, yeah, German sentences can get long, but not that long. So in other words, we have to come back to center. And it is this: we live in a fallen world. Now these anthropologists say, well, there's really nothing to suggest that the earth is older than 6,000 years old. Shut up. Go back to school and study a little bit. What there is nothing to suggest is that what we know as human beings, which you need to look into that too, man, serpent man, that's a subject for another time because it gets even more complicated really for some, myself included. Yeah, there were Nephilim, great big giant guys. Somebody caught on video, and if you hadn't caught it on video, we wouldn't see it. And there was a huge thunderstorm going up. Well, it's all frequency, just like Tesla said. Think in terms of frequency or energy, frequency, and vibration. So here's this huge thunderstorm. There's kind of a shaft of light that's not like the aliens shining a light on you, but it's just slightly lighter than the background, which is dark. It's at night, and all these thunder claps are going off and the lightning, and you see this giant person walk through this, and you go, wait, and it looks like some gigantic, distorted Nephilim looking person. Okay, I'm just saying that's what it looked like. I'm not saying that's what it is. But how about that deal in Afghanistan where the soldiers were attacked by this giant guy? I mean, there's even the book of giants in the Bible. So here's the thing. We don't know. We can study sedimentary rock and igneous rock and sedimentary is it just layers of silt or whatever, just stack up, make these layers and then eventually harden. Okay, fine. But what if, as Stan Deyo has confirmed, at least to his satisfaction, he really is the real Indiana Jones, or at least he studied under the real Indiana Jones. And when his mentor passed away, then, well, Stan became the real Indiana Jones. But he is convinced that he found the Garden of Eden in Tanzania. Okay, so when you think about how long a lifespan is, and then you go back, your great-grandfather was probably born in the late to mid-1600s. So it doesn't take that long. And yet, 6,000 years, that's a whole lot of grandfather after great-grandfather after great-great going all the way back there. So what is to suggest that the so-called human beings, the men and women that we see today, are a 6,000-year-old result? But before that, there were giants that walked the earth, just like Goliath. Goliath was a leftover Nephilim. Okay, David referred to him as this uncircumcised Philistine. Okay, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Take this armor off. It's too heavy. Just give me these stones here. Give me my sling. Back off. I'll take care of this mug. And he did. But the point is this. We mostly don't know what we're talking about because we have been fed rubbish all through elementary school. Now it's political elementary school as these twisted, demonically possessed freaks try to distort our children into something that they can use for pleasure at some point. That's what's happening. Not in every school, but in far too many. But the other part is this: when this stuff becomes reported, it gets into the heads of people. And when you keep hearing it, it gives you the impression that it's very widespread, and it may not be widespread, but it's widespread enough to where it got into our heads, and we don't like it. So now there's some more division. If we will look at things from the basic, rather the baseline of some things are good and some things are evil. We don't know where we were before we came into this life, and we certainly don't know where we're going to be when we die, and we know that we all will. Well, are some people reincarnated? Probably. Because just like Tom Waits wrote in this goofy little song, it is a goofy song, but it has one very interesting line, and it is, everything you can think of is true. In some way, large or small, a fragment or something big, everything and anything you can think of is true somewhere. I hope that makes a little bit of sense because you've thought of it. Therefore, you have created it or you have detected it. You have either created it or you've detected it. But everything that you can think of is true. May not
Does
be a
that
big
spiral
deal.
off into a parallel dimension then? It's an infinite amount of parallel.
Everything is happening all at once.
One unique moment in time, yeah.
Past, present, and future,
Pinpoint.
all happening at once. That's what I think. That's why I think nobody actually really dies. And just on a personal note, the man who actually took this commercial I recorded for my dear mother's boutique back in the day, she just wanted me to do it. And I went over to the radio station, recorded it. And I played it for a buddy of mine just as a kick, and he took it to a guy who would become Capitol Hill correspondent, Jim Miklaszewski. He's retired now. And that's what started everything off. But, and why am I telling you this? I've kind of lost my spot here.
Everything that we could think of does exist. It's
I hate it when that happens. You got me going now, Brian.
Oh, I know. The real history. Oh, you're talking about the children turning into play toys and the whole agenda.
The man died. He actually is the one who started my whole radio career. Actually, Mom did by getting me to record the spot, but that was the end of the deal. The spot ran, and that was the end of the deal. I didn't get paid for it. I did it for free. Didn't want to be paid for it. But when I took it to Mike, he took it to Mick, and then while working at that little station, little mom and pop station, used to be the old KBUY, is what you call a cow patty kicker station. 1540 AM, you could barely pick it up because of the directional signal. We go out to the transmitter location. I mean, you could walk down the street and you could hear it fine, then turn right and walk 10 paces and it'd drop right off your radio. It's one of those deals. We shoot our pistols out there and everything else. Well, he passed away. And younger than I am, and he got sick. He got hepatitis C from something, probably some abuse that he got into with the wrong woman. I suspect that's what it was. But he was just a nice guy. Always wanted to help people, just easygoing. And he had a nice, deep voice. And he said, well, he thought about going into the voiceover business, going into competition with me. But what I didn't tell him was, Mike, you wouldn't have put up with this for 10 minutes. You would not have put up with those personalities at all. You did exactly the right thing. Well, when I got the word that they were making him comfortable, something blinded me to understanding what they meant by that. That he was in hospital, but he's okay. They didn't tell me he's dying. If you want to see him again, you better come pretty quick because they're in the making him comfortable stage. It didn't register with me. I don't even know why I'm telling you this, Brian, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So I had a dream about Mike. He came walking up, and he was accompanied by what must have been angelic beings. I'm just guessing that's what they were. I don't know, but he had a person or an angel on each side of him. And in my dream, I was just weeping, and I was telling him, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, because I didn't know he was dying. It just, maybe I wasn't supposed to know. Maybe something went, no, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need to go and see him as he's just about to check out. You don't do this. I don't know. But he kept telling me, no, John, it's all right. Really, it's all right. And these angels were looking at each other like, wow, this isn't working out very well. And that was the end of the dream. But I do believe that it was Mike. I do believe that he knew that I was just crushed over not giving him a final handshake and a fond farewell. This life goes on. This existence, this life goes on after this existence. And I would just urge your viewers, look at it. Look at it closely. Choose wisely. Do you believe what other people say? Or do you believe that a man who was God, sent by himself to be on earth, said, I will take all of your sins upon myself and suffer the insufferable, so that you, through faith and belief, may have eternal life in a place where there is no time, there is no aging, there's none of that. You're just back home. If you want that, that's fine. But understand this, you have an enemy that wants you dead, wants you to suffer, delights in your, and sinfulness. There's a semantic satiation there. Oh yeah, right, whatever. It's like, no, you're degrading yourself. You're degrading a creation, which is you, that was made by a divine ruler and creator of the universe. If you can't answer the question, where is space that's out there? Well, who put it there? And what was there before it? If you can't answer those questions, which none of us can, you need to look at this. You may be making a very large error, the largest error you could ever make by not looking at it. Come back to your Father in heaven. Believe. I don't care what your denomination. I don't care if you're a Hindu. I don't care if you're a Jew. I don't care. I don't care. There's one path. There is one way only. We may not like that, but some things are just the way they are, whether we like it or not. And I urge everybody in this audience, if you haven't done this, getting on your knees is just humbling yourself, being willing to say, I am in bag of pus mode. I am willing to get on my knees and pray to my Father in heaven, my invisible Father in heaven, who created all of this that I know nothing about, to forgive me for all the stuff that I've done in my life and lead me to the light, because this ain't working. There's so much chaos in the world. What can account for this? What can account for this murder and rape and mayhem and disease and all of that? It's a fallen world. Go back to your Father and do it sooner than later, because you never know when you're going to check out of here. You don't want to be standing there flat-footed 2 seconds after you die. You don't want to do it, because I repeat, nobody really dies. They just don't. I've seen too much. I'm not crazy. And if I am, good. Yeah, I would love for all of this to just be one big imagining. It's not. This is more serious than you can possibly imagine. And the flip side of that coin is, it is more wonderful than anything you can imagine. And once you are in the spirit, and I know, more semantic satiation, I heard that one before. Once you ask and stand in the identity of Christ, you're going to see things that before you did this, you would have thought to be completely impossible, and you decided, I'm not even going to ask for that because it's too impossible. Nothing is impossible for the creator of the universe. It may not manifest itself the way you think, or I think it will, but it will manifest. It will.
Your
So
story,
sooner than later.
Your story of your friend that passed and you weren't there. It reminds me of something, our regulars, Deb and Kenneth and other people who have been watching for a while, they know very well. But unfortunately, my younger, healthier brother, he was probably the only young, healthy person to die of COVID. I thought it was just old, fat people. And he was up in Ohio, and I was here in Louisville, Kentucky, where I escaped to get out of Los Angeles a few years ago. And yeah, he got sick, but it's like we had all the talks. Vitamin C, D, zinc, ivermectin, sunlight. Like, we had the talks, and he was allegedly taking these things, and he got sick. And I didn't know. I never, John, in my wildest dreams, did I think COVID was going to take him out. Never, not 0% in my brain. like you said, well, making him comfortable, it didn't register. Well, it you
Didn't
never
register.
no, it didn't register at all. And then he wasn't getting out, and then he stopped responding to the text messages, and it got worse. And I'm like, hold on, what the hell's going on here? And then it's like, no, they won't give him ivermectin. No, they won't give him the Merrick protocol. They won't give him the vitamin C drip. They already told him they can't get monoclonal antibodies, even though it was 6 miles down there. It was just a perfect chain reaction of
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Just a perfect chain reaction of catastrophic events, just like when my engine overheated, which led to the cracked engine block. A series of catastrophic events blew up my Blazer on the freeway one day. That's kind of what happened to my brother. And, I was on the phone trying to finagle and wrestle up with all the social media presence and all my friends and family that I could. Who has ivermectin? Who can get it? Who can deliver it? How do we get it into the ventilation? We had nurses saying, we can't administer this and we can't let you do it. They looked around and go, however, if you wanted to take a pill like this and crush it into a powder and mix it with some water, here's how you would administer it. And if you ever need 5 or 10 minutes to yourself, just let me know and I'll go stand outside. I mean, I lived through all of this long distance. I was doing my part to try to help and try to get him the medicine that the hospitals were denying him. Whether it would have helped him, I don't know. I know that what they did slid him into a ventilation tube and into the ground. I know whatever they did didn't work. And yeah, it was weird, like not being there for that. I just never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that a common cold, air quote, would have taken him out. It was obviously a weaponized product that, once again, words matter. I don't say, oh, there was a lab leak. No. It was a lab release.
That's exactly right.
Intentional, unless they can, beyond a definitive doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, prove to me it was an accident. Because they started off telling me it was bat soup. Never believed that. And as bad as maybe putting drop boxes into big cities and mail-in ballots and maybe some electronic voting systems that we can't really access the voting. You can't have the proprietary code to really run a full forensic audit. So we don't even know what's going on. Aside from all that, the deployment of COVID that either ushered in all of these protocols to rig the 2020 election, or, Rahm Emanuel never miss an opportunity to take advantage of a crisis. We found ourselves in the middle of it. And if there are powers that be that would unleash something like COVID, there's no limit to what these monsters would do. Zero limit to the destruction of humanity. It wasn't just one region. It wasn't just one city, state, country. This was global, John. This was something.
It was a bioweapon. It was always a bioweapon. It was a 2-part bioweapon. The first part of the bioweapon is the actual so-called virus, and the second part was the so-called vaccine. It was an annihilation protocol, because the idiots think that we have too many people on the earth, and it's up to us to save the planet. Trot out some retard like Greta Thunberg, I mean, I wish people could just see through this and just run your own lives and stop being so afraid of everything and just take control of your own life. Start with faith, pray for guidance, pray for discernment, and live your life, and quit relying on other people to save you. They won't. They'll send you right into the fire. I mean, how much evidence do we need? Sorry. Not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry here. I mean, do you think someone like Fauci is ever going to face justice? Do you think the auto pen will undo a Supreme Court choice or some pardons? Or are you hopeful looking forward, like some justice here? I've been screaming for indictments. I'm tired of screaming, John. I'm tired of yelling. If these people are not held accountable, if they're not arrested and indicted and thrown into the Husgau, they're just going to be emboldened to keep doing it. Whereas if you string them up after a fair and impartial jury of their peers, or a military tribunal, if you will, because that might be the only way, say some people, I mean, what chance do we have? Do you think we're going to ever see justice for the demonic acts of?
Yeah, I do. We're 4 months. We got 44 months to go in this term, and he may get another term. And as much as I would like to see Fauci, given the short drop with a rope around his neck, I'd much rather that he sat it out in a very miserable prison. Maybe send him to Guantanamo something like
I
that.
think, you know what I said on my show a couple weeks ago when Trump announced we need to get Alcatraz back. We're bringing it back better than ever.
Yeah.
Alcatraz, shining rock on the sea.
That place
I'm
is
like,
pretty
how
small.
about you put Fauci in a cage and keep running the tours and point at him and allow people to ask him questions and have him listen to the misery of the people. Like, put him on trial, like let him live out his life in a cage being asked questions while they tour and point at him and say that's the world's largest, most prolific serial killer of all time by
Yes,
far.
he is.
I mean, I
And
would
he
be
knew what
okay
he was
with that. I've
doing.
also volunteered if someone needs to press a button, pull a trigger, flip a switch. I will gladly. My name is Inigo Montoya. You took my brother. Prepare for it, Fauci. You know, to paraphrase the Princess Bride.
Well, you mentioned Game of Thrones. It's too bad we can't call Khaleesi's dragon to just roast his sorry backside, but you know, I think that'd be too quick, you know. I think that'd be too quick.
You said 4 months. What are you feeling in 4 months? What's the timeline
Well, I'm
you're
saying we're only 4 months into his
Oh,
presidency.
we're
We
4 months
got
in. You
44 to
believe it's
go.
coming.
So I think there's a lot of things going to hit the fan, and a lot of it's good. I think it's going to be ice cream hitting the fan for some, and poo for others. So I guess we'll just see. But I'll tell you this thing today. He allowed Cyril Ramaphosa to hand himself his own backside. I mean, he was playing the "Kill the Boer" song with Malema leading it and all that. So it's all being exposed. President Trump is a brilliant businessman, and running the country and running the world is a business. It's not something philosophical. They leave the philosophy to us. We can go back and look at the founding fathers and the way they wanted it to be. But after that comes the actual work and the actual dealing with these kind of unpredictable human beings that some have nefarious agendas and some have benevolent agendas. But I'll tell you, I unabashedly declare I love this president. I think he is probably the best president we've had since Washington himself. I really mean it.
I agree with that. Here's a couple of seconds of the video that was played by our president finally defending good.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. You can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land.
Yes.
South African, occupy land. That's who we are.
Honorable
do whatever
member,
you want to do.
Speaker,
You can withdraw my
Speaker,
membership from
Deputy
this
Speaker.
useless parliament.
Honorable. Yes, honorable member.
Must never be scared to kill.
He's just a murdering savage. That's all he is.
According to Luke Radowski, who, if you saw that opening intro for the Agree to Disagree show, I interviewed Luke before and ran into him several other times at other events. But he's saying this is the exact video that was played today at the White House from President Trump.
That at some point there must
Yep.
be killing
Praise
because
the
the
Lord.
killing is part
Thank
of a
you very
revolutionary act. Shoot to kill, Yamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer.
Yeah, average IQ 25.
The farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. To kill, Yamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer.
This stuff we're not supposed to talk about or notice.
In PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain.
Yeah, who's the
because
racist
they
now?
touched a white
Yeah.
man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness.
Shoot to kill, Yamaza.
Anyway, this will go on. It's 4 minutes, 35 seconds long. It's on our X feed at American_media_. But yeah, this is what the mainstream media, sorry, he said MSM, the lying legacy media. That's what the lying legacy media is ignoring. There's been one objective from the legacy media, and that's white people bad, everybody else good, Christianity bad, everything else good, being heterosexual bad, everything else good. This has been the refrain from academia, from legacy media, from the Democrat Party, and it's just been growing, festering. Like the blob, it's just kind of gotten bigger and more bold with its
long enough
sales.
timeline. You know, on a long enough timeline, the truth is going to come out. But you know what, Brian? This is a message to you phony pastors and you heads of churches. You're a disgrace. You're marrying same-sex couples in your church. You're marrying homosexuals. Do you not understand your Father in heaven hates it when you do things like this? Do you know that you're flirting with hell, or do you not believe it exists? You better get your stuff together, and you better do it quick, because you're going to check out of this life one of these days, and you're going to account for everything you did to people through your false, twisted, demonically inspired doctrine. You better square yourselves away and unbleep yourselves, and you better do it pretty quick, because we're not having it. Take a look at what Mr. Engelman is presenting. By the way, that's some pretty cool stuff you're able to do. Just throw that stuff up there like that, man. I feel like we've got like a primitive campfire operation over here, because I do most of the talk. We don't throw up a bunch of graphics like that. That's very clever. I'm going to get with you, see if you can tweak up my tech a little bit.
John, either I could co-produce your program, I could teach you how to use Restream, whatever you need, brother. It's fantastic. I feel like I'm sitting at the control panel of, the top of the line military aircraft flying around, if you will.
Well, I think you are, and really, my compliments. I mean, what a smooth operation! Just able to put this stuff up there so quick like that. That's fantastic.
I've been practicing for a couple of years. Sometimes you feel like you're screaming into the wilderness, and it's like, I don't know if my show exists, but if the trees falling don't hear it, or I'm mixing metaphors. But thank you. I love it. My brain is hardwired to do this. I can quickly find things, and it adds a nice flavor to the program for sure.
Yes, it does.
Please continue.
Well, I appreciate the time. I could rant and rave for another 45 minutes or so, but I'm afraid I'd start giving you reruns after a while. We got a big job to do, and we need to get about it. And it all starts with the basics, which is figure out who you are. Find out who you really are. Not what other people think you are, not even who you think you are, but who you really are. Pray about it. It won't hurt you.
Drop to your knees. It's a humbling act. It matters, you're saying. Just the act of feeling your creaky knees on the hardwood floors, or even on a cushioned, a carpeted surface. Just the act of doing that activates something.
Well said. And in that way, we feel like initially we would probably feel, generally, I can't speak for everybody, we feel like we're making it all about God, which it is. But when you commit that act of going to your knees, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It may hurt your knees. We'll put a pillow down there so it doesn't hurt so bad. When you do that, your Father in heaven is making it all about you. He loves you. Many of us have raised children who did not feel like doing what they were told. They weren't just little robots. They wanted to be kids. We're just grown-up kids. Every man, every woman is just an ex-little boy or an ex-little girl. That's it. We're just older now. So get with it and do it sooner than later. We don't know each other personally, ladies and gentlemen. We don't. I know that. But we're all children of the Most High God. Why don't we start with that and act like it?
I could get down with that for sure. Okay. Well, as we reach the conclusion here, one final thought, one final component, John.
Okay.
You're hopeful that we got this. Trust the plan. There's gonna be indictments coming. I've been waiting since November 3rd going, there's no way anyone believes this. 81 million. Come on. What Arizona and Michigan, what are we? And on January 6th, they ignored that conversation and turned it into insurrection at a mostly peaceful protest. And I've been waiting 4 years for somebody to swoop in from the skies with indictments or go, ha, we caught you. Now we got it all figured out. We know your plan, your network. John, I have days. I try to make this program, the Agree to Disagree show, and the New American Media in general. I don't want it to be a black pill network. I don't want it to be all doomerism, doom and gloom. I don't want that.
No,
So talk me off of the ledge when I have to lie to myself, fake it till you make it, when I'm not really feeling like Bondi Bongino and Patel are doing anything. I see Trump doing some nice things, some great things, breakneck speed on some stuff. But then you just go, hold on, Epstein did this to himself. There's still no indictments. They're still running around getting away with everything. They're ramping up for another round. You only have a year and a half left with all of Congress before they try to steal 2026. What are we doing? John, give me something. And I'm channeling the frustrations of all the viewers that leave me the comments on my daily show, on the TNAM Daily Show. Tell us why we should trust that there's a plan. We're only 4 months in. What gives you that hope? Because I haven't seen enough to say, well, there's a track record of hope. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles won 2 Super Bowls in the last 15 years. Look, they could probably win it again. They have a good organizational structure. I'm looking at the organizational structure of the U.S. federal government, like the Cleveland Browns. I mean, if it's not a carnival in town, it's the closest damn thing to it. So our final thought, John, tell me why we should be hopeful and why you have your gut instinct is that we got this.
Well, Brian, I would have to say we don't have this yet. Number one, forget about tikkun olam. That's that Hebrew thing. Forget about repairing the world. The world cannot be repaired. It's a fallen world. The devil runs it. Period. End of story. Call him Beelzebub. Call him Satan. Call him whatever you want. The evil force that is the enemy of God runs this planet. It will never be fixed. It will never be repaired. It will never be fixed until the return of Christ. Occupy. Dig in and occupy. Do not put your faith in other men or women. Don't. Put your faith in your Father who sent you here to begin with. Dig in for the long haul. Expect nothing. Have faith that our Father in heaven sees the end from the beginning. He knows exactly what he's doing. And while we make it all about him, he makes it all about us because he loves us. Do we even know what that means? You know, we've made a couple of references to movies here, Kaiser Soze and so forth, but there's another one. It's a campy little picture from the early 90s, I think it was. Remember Mortal Kombat?
Oh, yeah. Finish him.
Face your enemy. Face yourself. Face your greatest fear. Face these things. And when you do, turn to your Father in heaven. Pray in the name of Jesus for guidance and protection. Ask, and you will receive. You receive not because you ask not. What do you think this is? We have an obligation to be faithful. Why? Because we were given life. If that's not good enough for you, I don't know what can be done for you. I really don't. I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. I know what it was like before I found faith, and I didn't suddenly turn into a boring, goody two-shoes that wears frumpy clothes and is boring all the time. No, you can be who you are. You just need to take your place, occupy that place, put your faith where it belongs, and it is not in other people because they're people. They're flawed. Your Father in heaven is not flawed. He is perfect. His Christ was perfect. Brian, I never thought that I would utter these words on any kind of a public forum at all. And I say again, and this is not braggadocio by any means. If anything, it's embarrassment. I was the wildest thing that these rock and roll people, when I went to work at that station, which is really pretty much the only truly iconic rock station in the country. They had KLOS, we had Jim Ladd, bless him, he passed away recently. A couple of other ones. But the Zoo was absolutely the pinnacle. It was the perfect rock station. People all over the world know about it. But when I crashed a motorcycle, last thing I saw on number 11 of the first 50 KTM RC 1190s that came into this country, when I dropped this thing, I was rolling the throttle open. I saw 67. That's 13, right? That number features significantly and repeatedly in my life, going years and years. I touched that front brake and I went down like that because I found out, and I think it was a setup by the Lord. I later found out that the rear shock, which is surrounded by a spring, that spring was never released. I thought, gee, this thing rides kind of bad. Well, I could see this. All I had to do was look, and I did look down there, but I didn't see it. That's the same way it is in a lot of things in life. You look right at it, but you don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Those spring coils were all touching. So not only does the shock wrapped with a spring cushion you when you're sitting on the seat, so like that, no, it pushes the wheel against the pavement. So when I touched that brake, I mean, it was like pulling a trigger, boom. Last thing I saw was 67, and I was rolling the throttle open. So it was probably more than that. And I called out the name Jesus, not like, Jesus, save me, I'm in trouble. It was like, hey, I got a little problem here. And the person who was following me, separated by one car, said, it was weird. I said, what was weird? She said, control just settled over everything. She goes, I saw the bike go to the left. I didn't see you hit the pavement, but I saw the bike go to the right and you went to the left. And she said, you're rolling just textbook. You got to the retaining wall there and took your helmet off and put your back against it and just kind of did this like, wow, that was a trip. Well, there was a fireman, a young man in a blue truck with a yellow light rack on it right there. She said, nobody slammed on their brakes, no horns, no crazy, no nothing. It was the words she used were, it was like control just settled over everything. 10 minutes later, the ambulance is there. 10 minutes later, I'm at Baylor Hospital. An hour and 10 minutes later, I walked out or hobbled out with a crutch, a boot, and a prescription for some pain pills, which I didn't take because they made me crazy. And I went to California. I went to Altadena, stayed at a friend's house for a few months. And in those, during that kind of rehab time, I still did my little voiceovers and stuff like that. That's fine. By the way, you're up in Louisville. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I was a voice of WQMF in Louisville for many years.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's still in the air, and WKQQ in Lexington. But anyway, I learned how to pray. I didn't know how to pray. I learned how to listen, to just be still, quit thinking. Right there at the foot of the Angeles Mountains, a little hippie town called Altadena, up north of Pasadena, which is a cool town because it's just so old and it's so well preserved. But anyway, this began an ongoing, and it continues to this day, evolution within the spiritual realm. I mean, I haven't lost my mind and just decided, okay, I'm going to go this direction. This will be my hobby for the rest of my life. It's like, no, this is absolutely real. And as long as I'm able to speak, I'm going to tell people what I believe and urge them to take a look at it and determine who they really are, what they really are, and what they really believe. And that is the entirety of my message. You know, I'll get on the program. I'll start, raising Cain about this, that, and the other. But in the end, that won't get us anywhere. We cannot repair the world. We cannot fix these people. What we can do is we can pray and let our Father in heaven handle it. We can't. It is beyond our power to solve these problems. But nothing is beyond our Father's capability. He can do it. If enough people, it's written right in Scripture, if my people will raise their voices up and declare that Jesus Christ is Lord, I will heal their land. But the unwritten part is, if they don't, well, then I guess I won't. So what do we want to do? Do we want to see flames or not? Get with the program. We're running out of time. It's 2025. So many of the events on this planet are aligning with, I don't mean just like, well, we can twist this event to make it correspond with what we believe the Bible is saying. Oh, no. Much of this is absolutely undeniable, including these various flashpoints. Who is your enemy? Is your enemy the enemy you're being told is your enemy? Or is the one doing the telling your actual enemy? Oh, the Russians are bad. Well, Vlad Putin built 10,000 churches, but Zelensky, who was one of the usual suspects, pretty much closed down the Orthodox Christian church. So, we've got to help Zelensky. Do we? No, we don't. Who put those 47? First it was, we don't have any. Then it was, well, we got 3. Then it turns out there are 47 those labs there, and they've been there for a long time. They just elected this character to head Romania now. Oh, he's pro-EU and pro-NATO and pro-Brussels and all that. He's just another globalist operator. These people are evil. I'm using the word evil. And as was written on the wall of this old club years ago that we sneaked into when we were teenagers called The Cellar, there was one in Dallas and there was one in Fort Worth. It said on the wall, evil is live, spelled backwards. I think that's true. So live. Don't flip it around to where your life becomes evil and you don't even know it. You don't even know it because it is all deception. You are never going to get a truthful answer out of the enemy with a capital E. The enemy will tell you everything you want to hear and then laugh in your face while you're being destroyed. Why is that? Because he's like that scorpion who talked a turtle into carrying him across the river and then stung him and they both drowned. As they're drowning, the turtle says, "What'd you do that for?" He said, "Well, I'm a scorpion. That's what I do." That's evil.
And that was from the movie Natural Born Killers, while we're referencing mid-90s movies. They tell that parable in that story as well in that movie. Yeah, I pulled up the quote here, Sir Edmund Burke, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing."
That's it. And what does that make them, that they do nothing?
Coward.
Well, they're cowardly. Which is evil? Cowardice or courage? Okay.
Coward.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I appreciate you on your program, man.
John, thank you again for everything. Tell us one more time, tell the listeners where do you want them to go? You told us about Brendy's cookbook. You find all this on caravantomidnight.com. Any sites you want to drop, tell us right now.
Okay, well, we have all this stuff. You know, we developed the mandate was this. I'll be brief. I made the acquaintance of a man. He's from Fort Worth also. Graduated a few years later than I did. So, but still kind of in the same demographic. And he developed this product. It's the best hydration product in the world. It's called Fuel Up. And I said, "Hey, this is pretty good. As a matter of fact, I think it's the best I've ever seen, ever." And I said, so time went by and I said, "I want to develop a product, but I need a really, really good nutritional biochemist because I've got one of the top 3 in the world." I said, "Give me his number." So I called the man and he said, "How can I help?" I said, "I want to develop a nutritional product." He goes, "Okay." I said, "All I want is the best nutritional immune support product in the world, because if we can't do that, then there's no point in doing it because I can just get something else." He goes, "Well, it is possible." I said, "Can you do it?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "Do you want to do it?" He said, "Absolutely." So we did it. And it's called Nucleo Boost, and it is changing lives. Product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent a disease. It's not been evaluated by the FDA, thank God, praise him in the name of Jesus, because the FDA apparently approved titanium dioxide to be included in candy that is given to children. They've decided maybe taking fluoride out of the public water supply might be a good idea. Well, duh. So your health is up to you. This product is doing things for people that I cannot legally tell you, but my friend BT said, "I've been called Chrome Dome since I was in high school." He goes, "Look at this. His hair is growing back on his head." Brandy was in South Africa for about a month. We never tell anybody. We never let it out when she's coming or going or any of that. But there was a little boy, 4 years old, and he was practically going into stasis. She gave him Nucleo Boost with some John Payne is a formulator of Camelicious. It's dehydrated camel milk. Comes from one of 3 breeds of camels. He's not saying which one either.
And that's not camel, and that's not chamomile tea. That's camel milk.
Camelicious, yes. It's camel milk.
It sounds like chamomile, but it's camel milk. Camel milk, chamomile. Yes.
Camel milk. And the one with ERDS, he has 3 in his line. We carry it at ctmstore.com, caravantomidnightstore.com, ctmstore.com. This ERDS is the colostrum from the new camel mothers. It is bioidentical to human mother's breast milk, and it will restore your gut biome. In about 6 weeks, it'll be done. It is all about metabolic health. What's that? The body's ability to process nutrients. You need some of this. You really do. So Nucleo Boost, that's our powder. We also have it in capsules. But the original is a bag of powder. It's a 30-day supply, 1 dipper a day. Put it in the camel milk and slam it down, and you have done everything that you can do for your body. Now, we have a line of also a branded, I'm not going to call them nutraceuticals. They're vitamin supplements, but they are sourced from really, really hardcore, very dedicated people who want to make the purest product possible. So nothing that we offer is meant to just be bought. It's meant to be good. And in the case of Nucleo Boost, it's the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. I go to Whole Foods, I go to the GNCs or every other vitamin store out there, and I take pictures of the labels on there, and I go back and see what they're doing. It's like nothing compares. That's just the way it is. This Fuel Up is the ultimate hydration product. And Fuel Up and Nucleo Boost feature this thing called Bialo, which is biologically active aloe vera interleaf gel powder of a patented and most bioavailable form. And it gets the hydration in Fuel Up, and it gets the nutrition in Nucleo Boost into your cells, just mainlines them into your cells. And people are absolutely raving about it. I mean, it's undeniable that it works, and it is. It's not intended to do all those other things, but it was intended to be the best in the world. I believe it is. And we're always looking to see if it can be improved. And as it stands right now, we're good, 100%.
Is
All
this
of the building
something
blocks
that you take to kind of set yourself on the right path, or something you stay on forever?
Oh, you stay on it because look, the food supply is terrible. I mean, look what they're feeding us. I mean, I saw a video the other day of this guy cracking open some eggs, and they look like plastic, and he put them in the pan, and they behaved like plastic. They don't act like regular eggs. So look, we're a little bit spoiled in the United States. We may not think so, but we are. And I have always followed the dietary habits of people who live forever, who seem to have the least of everything,
Right.
but they know how to survive, and they live. Well, you got Japanese guys, they're in their 90s smoking, 2 packs of Pall Mall filterless and drinking sake, and they're fine. They still go to the dojo and so what is it that they're doing that we're not doing? Because the average life expectancy now is somewhere in the mid to low 70s, and that's it. Your body's made to last 120 years. You may not make it to 120 years, but it's capable of doing that. But you have to do things for it. And the FDA has been, in my opinion, an abysmal failure because they routinely approve things that the rest of the world regards as there's about 120 things that they've approved for consumption that the rest of the world regards as poison. I mean, I'm not making this up. And by the way, Camelicious is produced in an EU-approved facility, which is really, really hardcore. He raises his camels in the UAE, and his product is manufactured and packaged in the UAE, and I'm telling you, you're going to love it. It will change your world.
And you're saying you developed this specifically. It's not just a sponsor that you're working with. This is like your product. Like this is.
Camelicious is John Payne's product. Fuel Up is Kevin Keekler's product. Nucleo Boost is our product. I mean, we've had this biochemist. He took almost a year to put this together. And he in fact raises his own aloe vera, and he fawns over them like they're his children. He makes sure that everything those plants are fed is absolutely organic and not harmful to people. But this little 4-year-old boy, he looked like he was getting close to the edge. It looked like we might lose him. Well, Brendy was there, and she went up there and gave him the camel milk and gave him some Nucleo. And in about, I can't remember what the timeline was, but it wasn't very long. It was like a day, maybe a day and a half. He was up. He never spoke. He was speaking. He had a little, pretty measurable dose of autism. He started coming out of that. And he was just on the floor, just lifeless. You would think the kid was going to die here pretty soon. Well, she gave him that stuff for 3 or 4 days. And I believe it was it's either the second day or the 4th day. He just came out of it completely. Another man said that there are 2 cases of autism with this. These are just case studies. I'm not saying it's going to happen for everybody who does it because I can't legally say that. You get in trouble for that. The FDA.
As you explicitly said to start this segment, it's not intended to treat curses or all that stuff.
Exactly so. This one little gal never spoke, and after she was on Nucleo for 2 weeks, she began painting beautiful pictures of elephants. It's just amazing. And then this kid, the man said, "I can't believe what I'm seeing." He goes, "My little brother never spoke. He never spoke. He hasn't uttered a word in years." Now, this is a true story. I'm not making this up at all. I can't make up something like this. He never speaks. He's restless. He doesn't sleep. He goes, he's sleeping through the night. I think it took 2 weeks for this to happen. He sleeps through the night, and when he's awake, he won't shut up. He talks all the time now. So something's going on. And this, and now they're trying to go, well, we don't know what causes autism. No, we think that it's genetic. And oh, we can't possibly even consider the possibility that it's environmental. They're feeding us poison. They've been feeding us poison forever. You know, they really have. The water was poisoned with fluoride and chlorine, and Lord only knows what else. And all this junk that they put in the food, it's insane. It's completely insane. So you can live longer and a lot better, but it's up to you. If you look to these mugs to do it for you, you're going to be disappointed because they're in it for the profit. They're not going to change anything. If it damages their bottom line, they're going to have to come under some real pressure before they change anything. So people want control. Okay, well, take it. And this is a good place to start. And right now, I would suggest is probably the best time for people to be firing on all 6 cylinders, mentally and physically. The one thing that every warlord knows is that you don't have to pay your soldiers. But what you do have to do is feed them, because without nutrition, they can't even think straight, let alone win a battle for you. And it's just the way it is, folks. So check it out. You're going to love it. You really are.
Excellent. All right, cool. Nucleo Boost, and check it out at caravantomidnight.com. Find out everything about the show.
Yep.
And Deb from SAC said, referencing evil and live backwards, she says, and God backwards is dog, which is man's best friend. That was a clever play on words.
We thought we had a white German Shepherd, but as it turns out, you mentioned Game of Thrones. They brought the dire wolf back into existence. No, they have.
Yeah,
John
a couple weeks ago, we covered the story.
We have one. He's about 200 pounds, and he is when he stands on his hind legs, he's 6 feet.
Wait, you didn't get a shipment when they unleashed the hounds. You're just saying you got a massive a dire wolf for John. But Deb continues. She says, thank you, John. This was uplifting to my soul today. Thank you, Brian, for having John here. And thank you, everybody, for being here. It's been too long, buddy, since we've had a chat, and there's so much every day. It is a trauma dump. We have to consume all of this negativity, and we have to put it back out there and try to make sense of it, and try to put the actual wisdom of who, what, where, when, why, and how. How do we get out of it? How do we proceed living through this? So, John, thank you for coming back on. I really appreciate you. And your show tonight, any fun guests we need to check out?
I don't know who's on tonight yet, but no, I usually find out at a couple hours before showtime, because there's this, got to juggle everything, schedules, time zones, and everything else. So I don't know at this moment, but it'll be somebody worth listening to. And remember, ctmstore.com and Talk Stream Live. We also blow it out over YouTube and Rumble and D Live and IB Log and OpsLens and a whole bunch of them. So, yeah. And Jellyfish News. We got to figure out a way to aggregate all this so people can see everything that we've got going on. I'm working on that. But
yeah, you have so many sites going on. You got a bunch of products, but I mean, hey, may we live in interesting times. Being busy has its own set of issues, but being bored and having nothing to do, I would argue that idle hands are much worse. So congratulations to you and all the continued success and everything. Please, everyone, go out, subscribe to John on, where's your primary channel? Rumble, or I guess, are you even on YouTube? You probably can.
Yep, YouTube. We delete the stream every night. Yeah, we delete the stream every night. And but YouTube,
it has to disappear before you can get punished, right? That's the plan.
But we have shows running continuously at TalkStream Live. You'll hear tonight's show run twice, and then there'll be some random shows. So I mean, it's a pretty full immersion experience, and the guests are fabulous. They really are. I mean, I can't do this all by myself. I mean, the guests are just excellent. So I think people will really enjoy them, and you'll enjoy bringing some of these people that come on if you haven't already. I mean, there's every possibility you have, but they have a lot of stuff to bring to the party that people need to hear. So it's there for you too, man.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up for there. At that moment, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, John, for participating. I appreciate you. I love you, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everyone.
Love you back, bro. See you.
Peace.